June 3rd, not too bad.
Have a sprawling moment, so she'll just be there.
I told myself, it's only gonna be an hour, I'm going to stay contained.
Oh, yeah, sure.
What on that?
Sure. Yeah, I believe you. Thank you, Jordan, for turning off the fans.
Yeah.
I walked out, thank you.
Oh, I had
I
nothing.
walked out like a freaking ice cube at the last.
I had nothing to do with
Like,
it.
okay, I can't do that again.
Yeah,
I was just like,
they were turned on this morning.
thank you.
Man, let's do it on the beginning.
Okay. You're wearing.
record, I would say, please, and okay, right.
I was like blowing them.
Okay.
Yeah, right there.
All right, we will start the joint work session with the tourism committee at 6:01 p.m.
So I think everybody knows the background, but I'll do a quick overview here. The current contract for support services for tourism ends November 30th. We're looking to figure out how to move forward with that support service. At the last council meeting, council approved this work session with tourism to work together to find a solution forward. They also approved requesting a 6-month extension with the museum to coverage until we figure out how to move forward, and for the tourism committee to put an RFP together. Myself and the contracted support have put together a quick presentation for tonight to give both council and the committee what we have seen over our last 2.5 years with this organization, what we feel, what we're recommending is the best path forward. And then you all can take that information and move forward as you see fit. Given
Before we get started, I'm curious, I wanna ask the tourism committee, did they approve this document that we're reviewing tonight? Was this?
It was presented to us in draft form, but that's as a FYI to be presented as.
Okay, so it wasn't approved, was, I mean,
It's a recommendation coming from the museum and from me, it's not it doesn't need to be approved.
okay, so it's a recommendation coming from you, or so this is this a tourism recommendation? I'm just wondering.
this is a recommendation from the current support staff on what they've seen in operations and what they feel is the best way to move forward. It is completely separate from actual tourism committee.
Okay, so, but, my problem is that this is a joint tourism meeting, not a joint staff meeting.
Not a joint. I see where you're going with this.
Because I want to hear from tourism, I really don't.
Want to hear a presentation from
Staff,
staff. Yeah, I can.
so, you know, I'm a little perplexed. We have a. System. I don't understand why, I mean, I understand you want to make recommendations to move the tourism forward, but to me, I feel like this is a discussion that we need to have a tourism staff, so I don't understand this direction.
We are trying to give everybody all of the information possible, everything we have seen to give you all the information you can make a decision. This is the way we felt best to do it, on how we, as a recommendation, on how to move forward, and then take it from there.
Okay, so if I can just push back a little bit, to me, it feels like this should be presented to the tourism committee first, and then the tourism committee can make recommendations to us, not I feel like we're putting the cart before the horse doing it this way. I don't know how the tourism feels about it, but that's the way I feel like I should hear from tourism first before I.
Hear from staff.
Well, the thought was this is a joint work session, we have everybody here, we can present everybody with the same information and discuss it from there.
So then my question would be, does tourism feel like this represents what you guys have decided and what you guys have been talking about and the direction that you guys wanna go?
I don't think we like made a decision as a committee. I think, Janice presented the information, and so. I think we were under the impression that the point of this meeting was to like have an open discussion about it. Not that we would make a decision necessarily and then present it to council, so that's kind of how it was portrayed to us.
Well, I guess we saw this. And it was understandable. It helped the new tourism committee, which we all are fairly new. I mean, this is just the beginnings for a lot of us. That this meeting workshop would be what to hear and discuss with council what they wanted to see from tourism, from us, because we personally, I understand where Jordan and the museum are going with this document. I understand that because of the contract. But I don't think a lot of us on tourism are confident that we could help make these decisions, because we don't really know where we stand as a committee and what we're supposed to be overseeing and doing. Am I saying that right? Because we don't really have, I don't see personally a structure for our committee as of yet, and I thought that that's what we were going to be here this evening, was to hear what the council wanted kind of from us and discuss that, what you were looking for in recommendations of what you wanted to see the tourism committee be able to come together and bring to you, not so much contract talks. Courtney?
So then, Jordan, since you've been in between both of the groups, communicating for us, what was the overall general idea that what was your takeaway from the last meeting that you thought council wanted and you thought tourism wanted during this meeting?
That council wanted with the vote for a 6-month extension, and then tourism would put an RFP together. Tourism, I don't think really quite, because it is a lot of new folks, weren't quite sure best way to move forward. And again, this was part of trying to get everybody as much information as they can to make that decision.
Yeah, and I was personally under the impression that we were coming here to discuss the presentation that Janice put together and the path forward on that, not general tourism duties.
Okay, then that was my misunderstanding. Yeah, we all obviously walked away with a different impression, and this is important. I'm not, not bypassing that, but I think at the last tourism meeting, we discussed how educated or underinformed a lot of the new members were on what was wanted to be seen from us by council.
Yeah.
Because we are, I guess, feeling that we're supposed to be working with council as a support system in the tourism industry. And with that, a lot of us new ones, there's like no guidelines saying, okay, we're supposed to be doing this. And that, yes, I know that Janice has done a lot of the consulting work and keeping things together as the committee has grown, which is amazing, the things that I've seen and that she's done, but you might be right about putting the horse before the cart. A lot of the council itself doesn't really know which direction we're supposed to be heading. And we do understand that we need to have our own support system. Am I saying that correct? But, and how we get there, do we just go along with what we've been doing, or how do we find out the new stuff? Janice?
So I built a lot of that recent history context into the presentation, which I think will help give you some context for a lot of this discussion, if you're interested in hearing it, but.
And I just wanna say that the reason why I don't wanna repeat what happened with the last council, going against the recommendation of the tourism. And completely exploding, blowing up the whole tourism committee. Which is why I feel there was like a lot of, like, we've had a lot of problems with turnovers since the last, not listening to what the recommendation of the tourism was, so I want to hear what the tourism has to say. Not necessarily what the paid staff has to say, but.
Mary Ann, Sally, were you on tourism many,
Yes,
okay, and when that tourism group was going,
yes.
it was working fine?
Yes, as far as I could see, I got involved with medical issues and stuff and had to step away. But the short time that I was with that group, they functioned very well. That I could see, people knew what they needed to do, what they were supposed to be taking to council. Going out in the community, I mean, things have changed, it's been a few years, obviously, but, the committee members were doing a lot of the legwork. And of course, we did have a paid support person.
Right, you had a paid
And-
support person.
Yeah,
Not, but a paid support person that knew about tourism and knew what needed to be done, is that correct?
not
Annie,
necessarily.
Annie knew a lot about.
Yeah,
it.
she knew a lot about chambers.
Yes,
And that sort of thing, then that is kind of the direction at that time that I saw and felt that we were involved in, was a lot of the local chambers and the outreach to
Mhm.
those places, and that was being done by
this,
the members
right,
of the committee.
Courtney.
So to simplify, or to kind of recap my understanding of what we all feel like this meeting is that council was under the impression that we were going to receive, recommendations from tourism on a direction they wanted to go. Tourism was under the impression that they were going to receive a direction, and paid staff is the one that came up with the direction. Is that kind of what we're all?
I don't know if we were receiving direction, that we were receiving a recommendation, but that the goal was this to be.
For what?
For what to do after the contract extension expires. But like, at least, again, I guess I'm speaking for myself, since it sounds like we heard a little bit different things. I thought that this was the workshop to have like an open discussion, Janice presents their recommendation, and then we go from there. So that was like what I thought was happening.
If we decide, if we want to go over the presentation, but in doing so, it could be that. Does tourism agree with what's being recommended? I mean, cause there's no sense in going over something if you guys are not for it.
Well, I
would
can't
not
really say
recommend
that at
that.
this
Yeah.
point.
Yeah,
We've been approached with several different situations that have been recommended to us and. You know, just been kind of following the lead because we.
I think we just been kind of listening.
Yeah,
But they're really, and hopefully kind of understanding the recommendations, but I don't think as a group, have we talked about a direction that we're comfortable with? We're just kind of
I think we might have individual opinions, but we're
Sure.
not
Oh, yeah.
together as a group.
and discussed it within amongst ourselves, is that, yeah, okay.
so can we agree to at least go through this, so it gives us some information that maybe we're looking for, or what do we want? Just to give me some direction, so we're not wasting any time.
Let's see, it's up to the tourism committee.
Tourism, yeah, that's you guys,
Yeah.
or do you guys wanna just
I
have
think that would be a good use of
Yeah.
time.
Sarah?
I don't know, like, to me, it just seems like it's the same thing of. You know, that we haven't been allocated any responsibilities, and which when Sally and them were on committee, it seemed like they knew so much more. And were involved in it a lot more, and it seems like for 2 years I've been there, it's just been very little, but the committee has. Shrunk, and then it gets big, and then it shrinks, and then it's like back to square one, but. It seems like we just keep going back to square one and we're not getting anywhere. And it's very frustrating, and I can see how the communities that would wanna explode, because it's just
Right.
a revolving door of. stuff.
So when you guys whenever you signed up and you got approved and all that, did you get a packet that had the council procedures and all that? Okay, I was.
I got mine a year later.
Yeah.
A year later? Yeah, I got it a year later.
Okay, okay, that's an issue too.
Yeah.
Sorry about that, guys.
So I don't know, I just don't think I mean, I don't mind if Janice goes over this, cause we did talk about this in our meeting.
Yeah, I think there's some information.
Yeah, and it is good information to and there are pros and cons in here about what's been going on. But to make a decision at this juncture, I don't think our committee members have had a chance to really knock around options.
Yeah.
Or to, really dive in to see what our options are and how if you're looking at us to see how we want it structured. We were kind of looking for someone else to help us figure out how to structure this, so.
Yeah, and it's just been a combination of,
Yeah,
I admire the way the old tourism were so involved in that, and Janice has totally taken the lead, I agree, that's wonderful, but I would love to, like what Sally says, to distribute merch and go to the different conferences, and I think I've been to 2 conferences, and we never got merch, we went around and gathered merch, but, I thought it'd be cool if it could be more hands-on like that.
So I think what we'll do is what I'm hearing is that we're good with listening to the information and gathering facts. And then we'll go from there. Is that?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Janice, you're on.
All right, good evening. My name is Janice Crane. I'm the executive director of the Friends of the Cascade Box Historical Museum, which, as you know, is your current vendor for tourism services. In preparation for contract renewal, I'm here tonight to talk to you about the challenges we've had with administering tourism. And I hope to help guide your conversation this evening and to make recommendations on how to improve everyone's experiences. One of the strengths of our proposal during the 2023 RFP process was our professional network. So this next slide is just a list of tourism industry professionals that have weighed in on where Cascade Box is at as a destination. And how to improve everyone's experience with destination management here. Some of these people have given up to 10 hours in free consultations to Cascade Box as far as like supporting this development, and they're really looking at it as a case study for small destination growth. So then next slide, please. So there's 2 primary issues that are facing Cascade Box tourism. This is just what, if we zoom all the way out and we look at the organizational challenges, the 2 primary things that I see are understanding gaps about the committee's role, structure, and function, and expectation gaps in the service level for tourism support. And I think that these 2 challenges beget that 3rd challenge of politics. This is taking up a lot of time and oxygen, and ongoing misunderstandings are just really confusing for people. So let's review these issues and figure out what we could do differently to make reality meet the expectations. So on that next slide, problem number 1 is the committee's role, structure, and function. So the first conclusion that we've come to is that there are some significant understanding gaps because how we've always done things and what's in the tourism committee ordinance and how things work when you're conducting business are different. When the council went against the committee's recommendation in 2023 and awarded the museum the contract, several of your most experienced tourism committee members resigned. Debbie Fine stayed on long enough to give me a list of her complaints that she had prior to her resignation. And those were primarily around budget transparency and committee structure. The 2023 committee members were in the process of advising council to update ordinance 259, which is the ordinance about the tourism committee. And progress stopped on that when those committee members quit. At the last joint committee and city council meeting in January 2024, city council asked the committee to evaluate its role, structure, and function. Now, most of the city councilors and committee members have turned over since then. Sarah is the only person still on the tourism committee, and Eric and Pete are the only 2 still on city council. So it's a lot of new people and a lot of new direction, right? And so I facilitated that meeting, and in the interest of continuing that work, I've been thinking about this for you. So the committee-led format isn't supporting functional destination management as it is right now. On the next slide. So these are the three basic types of functional board structures that you see in government and nonprofit leadership groups typically fall into. These are working boards where the committee members do the work themselves between meetings. Governance and advisory boards, which are, they guide policy and then delegate the work to staff. And volunteer groups, which don't have formal decision-making authority, but they do a lot of work on especially events and fun projects. And if you go through and ask committee members, past and present, what kind of board the tourism committee is, you will find people who answer that it's any of these three different types. And it's because it has functioned in these different ways over the years. When this committee has been at its most effective, it has been when it functioned as a working board. However, Ordinance 259 most closely aligns with the governance or advisory board, which is pretty typical of a government committee. The most unsatisfied committee members who resigned midway through their terms thought that they were joining a volunteer group. On the next slide, there are some challenges with each of these different structures. In my personal experience of serving on working boards, they become dysfunctional quickly when members don't come into the group already knowing the basics of what they need to do. And when you have a group of qualified professionals on the working board, they still have high turnover to the point of being unsustainable because you're asking people to do what they normally do for money as a volunteer. Governance and advisory boards require adequate staffing to complete the work and a staff member that has to effectively manage and engage the board. You do not currently have sufficient staffing levels to support that structure on this committee. Volunteer groups also need strong leadership. On the slide about the ordinance, so the ordinance that creates the committee is at its core, creating a governance advisory committee. It's kind of open to interpretation because most of what's included is procedure, not function. It hashes out all the appointments and term definitions, position numbers, meeting rules, but very vague instructions on what work the committee actually does. The ordinance that governs the committee is separate from the administrative rules governing transient lodging tax, which were last updated in 2021, and short-term rentals, which was last updated in 2024. This ordinance has not been updated since 1988. So tourism was a completely different industry. In 1988, a general advisory committee worked because it wasn't a heavy lift for the city clerk to send out a couple of checks per quarter for magazine ads. With the evolution of tourism and marketing as an industry to include digital marketing, AI applications, data analysis, and strategic collaborations, it becomes a higher skill staffing requirement. This is beyond the scope of what your current city staffing levels can support. On the next slide, I think you would really benefit from a better definition around the board structure for this committee, and I think it would improve committee members' experiences to have everyone have clear expectations of their goals. The committee should spend time evaluating which type of board it would function best as. Earlier this month, I also recommended that if our contract was going to be extended, that the museum would only accept that extension contingent on engaging with a strategic planning consultant to facilitate that discussion. I think hiring a facilitator will guarantee that a mindful conversation takes place on a reasonable timeline and that the right questions will be considered to be successful. Then after that, you would update the ordinance so that the documentation supports the continued success of the plan structure. Now, the second problem that you're seeing is expectation gaps in service levels for tourism support. The other main problem is that the expectations versus the reality of what you're looking for when you go out to RFP for a contractor. A huge part of the conflict has been ongoing since we contracted this role is that some people don't understand the difference between an employee and a contractor. The contract itself was very clearly follows the legal definition for this. The city has contracts with other companies for services like waste management, the water treatment plant, linemen, but you treat the tourism service contract differently. People are having a really hard time wrapping their head around the idea that the museum is a company that can provide a service. The community level understanding is that tourism support is a person doing a job. Using the titles, tourism support staff is part of what sets this expectation. This is a job title, it says staff in the title, but you don't have an employee. On the next slide. So the IRS and the Bureau of Labor and Industries have really clear definitions of what constitutes an employee versus what is a contract position. Contracts are between two businesses with one providing services for the other. Individuals who engage in 1099s are self-employed and they pay their own taxes. If someone performs a service that you can control what, when, and how it will be done, you have an employee. So contractor versus employee is defined by that level of control. Who decides which work gets done and how, and are there required approvals in place? So my recommendation for problem number two is that I've spent the last 2 years undergoing a very public performance review for a job that doesn't exist. And I think to support that set of expectations, it doesn't match the agreement or the ordinance. So functionally, you want this to be an employee. You all refer to it as tourism support staff in every report as if it's an employee. And you want the level of control that comes with having an employee. And if that's the case, that's fine, but you need to hire an employee, so to make it, align with the reality of the situation, you don't go out for RFP, develop a job description. There's some risks to going out to RFP again and contracting with an individual, if you continue to contract with people and treat them like employees, you could be liable for employment taxes, for as long as people get treated that way. And then for a more positive framing on the next slide, hiring is also my strong recommendation for how you can grow this part of your budget. And so to support this, I did some digging into how other cities manage tourism. So in April, I prompted the committee to start talking about strategic planning, going into budget discussions. And I researched and compiled a list of similarly sized cities with similar volumes of tourism. So I was looking at census data, maps, local economies, proximity to high volume destinations, lodging property mixes, and then I filtered for incorporated entities that can leverage their own BLT. So on the next slide, please. So I identified 13 other cities that made a good comparison for Cascade Locks. The northern parts of the coast, cities on the way to the coast and the wine country all see high volumes of day trippers. John Day and Enterprise were included because they're both adjacent to high volume outdoor recreation destinations, although the fossil beds and the Wallowas are not as high impact as the gorge. And what we found on the next slide is that if you look at the chart, you'll see that most of these destinations are contracting with their local chamber of commerce to provide destination management and marketing service. So this is the trend in the 80s and 90s when TLT became a supplementary option for chamber dues. The other two cities with just advisory committees like what we have are Amity and Bay City. Amity's tourism committee consists of 2 city councilors, 3 industry professionals, and 1 citizen member. The Amity has fewer overnight lodging options than we do. They only have 1 hotel. And their committee has been working since at least April on getting their destination a website. Bay City's transient lodging tax advisory committee hasn't met since July. But they primarily oversee a grant program dispersing TLT to local organizations and companies for marketing. Because of the work done by our tourism committee when it was a functional working board, we are developed beyond this as a destination. And so the next step for growth is to join that little dark blue wedge there, is to increase your staff support. And then I have good information from our neighboring DMOs about how we can grow. So on the next slide. Our 2 closest DMO destination management organization neighbors are Visit Hood River, which is an independent organization that contracts with the city to spend TLT. The Hood River Chamber contract includes a lump sum made up of 25% of TLT receipts, which they can use to promote tourism under their control. Our second closest neighbor is Explore Troutdale, which is managed by Marley Boxler, who is a city employee. And in the interest of supporting the recommendation to hire, I want to show you their proof of concept. So justifications supporting this, I mentioned that hiring an employee would help with making expectation and reality line up, but in addition, the city has infrastructure project management needs that could fall under tourism and destination management. And that work is still going to need to be completed, even if tourism services are contracted to a third party, whether that is the museum or a hypothetical Visit Cascade Locks DMO organization, any third party entity, you would still have that work you have to do. On the next slide, so at the Troutdale City Council meeting on October 15th, Marley reported that the return on investment for hiring an employee. So just for an overview of their TLT structure, they first implemented it at 5% in 1972. And on the next slide here, there's a timeline that shows how it's grown. In 1999, they added a special 0.95% designated for the Chamber of Commerce. And then in 2020, they reallocated it to fund a tourism and economic development division within the city. And they hired Marley Boxler, and her title is Economic Development Coordinator. And so on the next slide here, so Marley was able to demonstrate that they've seen a 59% increase in hotel revenue and a 238% growth in their short-term rental market since transitioning to an in-house position. When we compare it to Cascade Locks, Prattville has 5 hotels, and one of them is Edgefield, but their Comfort Inn and their Motel 6 are comparable with some of the motel properties in Cascade Locks. They also have over 11 times our population, so their housing inventory is much larger and can support having 46 short-term rental properties. I think this is an investment worth making. 70% of your TLT goes into your general fund, so investing in tourism development helps your general fund bottom line. In addition to the projects you already have planned, like downtown development and wayfinding, a full-time employee could be managing marketing campaign life cycles, developing visitor resources, recruiting downtown tenants, new attractions, and hotel developers to Cascade Locks, in addition to training your committee on how to be a committee, right? This is also a huge opportunity for better partnership with the port. So both the port and the city have different responsibilities for supporting economic development in our community, and finding that synergy could be a goal for this position. In addition, I think you'd save a lot of time and energy by having someone be in charge who is paid to devote their full-time attention to tourism in Cascade Locks. And so that's what I'm recommending, and thank you for your time and attention this evening, and I hope that this facilitates some robust discussion.
So is this a full-time position, 40 hours?
Yes.
A week? And, you know what the median pay is for this position?
I have not personally completed a salary study for it, based on job postings that I've seen, anywhere between 70 and 90 would be a range.
70, 90 a year. Yeah, 70 and 90 a year.
Yes.
And then also, is, this going to be, separate from the museum, because it,
Yeah, instead of going, yeah,
because throughout the reports, I see a lot of museum stuff in here, which is not tourism, that's port. So, yeah, I just.
right, so I'm recommending that instead of going out for RFP, that you develop a job description.
But, okay.
Yeah.
Taking.
So, yeah, if there's no RFP, there's nothing for us to reapply for and say, hey, we're putting in an application for.
So is museum on our RFP? I mean, well, okay, so it's just curious why, because it just, there seems to be some modeling between tourism. Tourism, city and museum, port.
She's recommending that an employee of the city.
Of the city,
Which
not
would
of
take
the
it
city.
totally away from the museum, it would be just like any other city staff.
Yeah.
Courtney?
And so, yeah, I've had a hard time playing catch up and trying to understand where the line's drawn between tourism and the museum, because it seems like there are a lot of, maybe, I wanna say interchangeable, but maybe just a lot of, poor verbiage being used, you know, like, as far as, you know, like, as you brought up, referring to city staff as, or support staff as an employee and how that's not working. So maybe, you know, and so you said at the beginning of your presentation, that the museum is the vendor of tourism, and so maybe understanding that a little better will help you understand.
Yeah, so you have a contract with the museum to provide a service, just like you have a contract with whoever you do for the wastewater treatment plan, right? Or for, you know, the garbage.
Legal service.
Legal service,
Yeah.
and all of those are different things that you contract out, and your contract with the museum is very similar to those contracts, but the expectation for service, it doesn't match with what's in the contract.
So how does that make the museum the vendor?
Because we have a contract with you to provide a service.
The museum is the vendor of tourism.
Yes.
So the contract with the museum is that the museum will
We
be tourism.
do tourism stuff for.
Currently.
Works with the tourism committee to promote tourism for Cascade Locks.
Pete, and then I'll get to you.
So just so, I think I understand this, so the museum is a nonprofit.
Yeah.
Nonprofits can make money, I mean, they can raise revenue, but their end goal is not to be a for-profit business, right? I mean, that's correct, so the museum is a 501c nonprofit. Contracted with the city to provide our DMO service, is that right? Did I say that correct?
Kind of, the contract that we have is, based on the RFP that was put out to hire a support staff, so we're providing an administrative service for the tourism committee, so we are contracted to do the things that are on this document, which are all pretty vague.
I know that you alluded to that the expectation from, doesn't match with what's in the contract. Can you speak a little bit more to that?
Yeah, I think the imagined idea of this being a job, it's a person who's going to be available to go to the meetings, to take the notes, which is fine, but, if you want it to be a person that's doing a job, then you need to hire an employee, whereas if you wanna contract out services, do it a little bit more wholesale, like, we've had a lot of leniency to be able to do what we see fit within the bounds of the contract. And that hasn't necessarily matched with. Like when the committee couldn't meet, we still had services to provide, right? So we had to make a lot of decisions, which is under the bounds of our contract, fine, right? But it's confusing for people.
All right, I have you guys, Tiffany?
Okay, so I'm still confused. The port owns the collection and the port owns the property, so I don't understand what that has to do with tourism. I don't.
We have a contract with the museum, with Friends of the Museum for 25,000 to provide tourism support. So that means
We pay them 25,000
yes,
for tourism support,
yes.
means what?
So we show up,
And
the
so we have an
administration
RFP.
at the meetings, we write the minutes, we organize the committee when they're deciding to change the date of a meeting, like. We're managing the email inbox, we're doing like all of the different administrative tasks that are beyond what we're doing billing, we help with the budget, it's all admin office type stuff.
You're right, right, yeah. Are you done?
Yeah.
Bernard?
Yes, thanks for the presentation. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I'll just give you my kind of bottom line up front where my head is on this, and then I want to ask a few questions. So if I were to rank our options, my first option would be to explore using the chamber as our tourism service provider and diverting the 30% funds to those guys. And then we take on a regional approach to tourism and, use that scale. I mean, they do a lot of promotion for the gorge. And I feel like there's no reason we can't be a partner in that. And we piggyback on the broader, resources they have to amplify our limited TRT funds. So that's option one. Option two is we stick with the vendor services. I'm not displeased. I understand the challenges that Ms. Crane has laid out, but when I look at the performance of tourism in Cascade Locks, I feel like we're being very successful. I asked the city administrator to give me the last 5 years of TRT revenue and how that's changed. I only got a quarter, Jordan. Are you aware of that, what you sent me?
Could have been all of it, but I'll double check.
Yeah, I pulled up the attachment and it just shows basically 1/4 of revenue. So I'm not sure what happened there, but
Okay.
something to, go ahead.
No, I thought I attached everything. I'll double check after the meeting.
All right. Anyhow, my suspicion is that if you looked at 5 years of revenue, you would see a steady increase in transient room tax receipts over that time. And that means, I mean, some things are just natural. The gorge is growing in popularity. Oregon is a popular tourism destination. These things are just, they have their own energy, but it's also what the work the tourism committee has done to promote us. So you match those two things together, and you have a very successful TRT collection program, and I would argue a very booming tourism industry for our town. Could it be better? Absolutely. I would love to see the numbers, in the off season, how revenue declines from, call it October to April. So I'm sure there's room for improvement there. But all things considered, I think we've done very well with the structure we have in place. And then my third choice would be to make a full-time position out of this work. I don't think that's completely an invalid idea. My idea, though, if we did that, they would be tourism, but also economic development. It wouldn't be just tourism. Because I feel like there's more economic development the town should be pursuing beyond tourism. And I would love to see someone working on that in addition to our tourism requirements, because I feel like we have other ambitions beyond that. So anyway, it's at the bottom of my list. I'm not sure how the rest of council feels, but that's how I feel. And thank you.
Thank you. Courtney, and then I'll get to you.
Just had questions. So this says that this contract draft says that some of the job functions of this is for contract support work for the tourism committee. It says that contract support is part of their job description is minutes taking, agendas, committee reports to council, responding, well, those seem like things to me that should be part of the committee's responsibility, and I guess this whole time I was under the impression that we were getting committee reports, not staff reports. Agreed. And so I mean, I think all of this needs to be looked at closer. You know, that my other question, I guess, is, you brought up in presentation, the return of investment from Troutdale, investing in a DMO. I'm wondering how that looks against this PLT receipts, because I mean, you said it grew, I can't remember the exact percentage, but you said it grew a certain percentage since what, 79 from a long time ago. But looking at just our PLT, it looks like that's grown pretty exponentially.
The growth that I reported for Troutdale was through 2021 and 2024. And those are from their city council report.
Okay, I got the number from first implemented in 1972, so I must have. And so it looks like without a DMO, we've had similar growth. A little bit less, but we've had, you know, growth. In that same time period, and so I'm wondering, you know, how much of it is, you know, rebound from 2021, according to our chart, and how much of it is actually the DMO and how to quantify that.
Nathan.
I just was gonna add on to Councilor Seeger's comments regarding the TLT receipts, and that I would even be interested to see before 2020. I think the last 5 years data is gonna show a lot of recovery post-COVID. I'd like to see how we compare now to pre-pandemic times, if we're back to normal, or if we've exceeded those numbers. That's all I wanted to add.
Okay, Tiffany.
I don't want it to go to Hood River. I'm sorry, I just don't. I think we have a vested interest to keep it here and not outsource it to a different city. And so I'm gonna push back on that from Bernard.
I just wanna add a couple comments that I think when people join tourism, they're like wanting to be out there like at a booth for PCT days, or you wanna plant flowers and keep them watered and go around and help businesses, you know, and deliver brochures, whatever that is. I find a struggle that you guys are sitting in a meeting trying to approve budgets and stuff whenever we failed. And I had asked city administrator if you guys had gotten the packets of council procedures and stuff, prior to that same night as you guys were voted into position. And then I re-asked again, and I was told that Janice got them to you, so I'm very disappointed that you guys never received any information. So we need to, as a council, decide who's going to have the packets to give to people when they do get on these committees, because we're not giving them any information. And obviously me asking the question isn't good enough. So I think there's a lot that we need to work on with tourism to fine tune it and get these lines clearly defined, because the water seems to be awful muddy, you know, because people, it's hard to understand because you just think of the museum, we're not thinking that if it was with Pi, then we wouldn't have a problem with the art, with that contract, but because it's the museum, we have a hard time separating it. And I would like to be able to hear, cause we got like 15 more minutes, if council don't have any more questions or whatever, hear like, how you guys as tourism, what do you think tourism should be about?
Well, we had discussed before, you know, I mean, we came before city council when I first was on, and we had been approached about pushing our tourism to Hood River Chamber, and we voted it down, and we did have to have it full. So we voted that down once, and I fully disagree with that again, because we have fell under the umbrella of Hood River so many times. And we don't exist after that, I just don't feel that, I think we should be more self-supportive as far as tourism. And as far as the committee, yeah, the other, you know, it's just the stories that you hear from the other tourism committee that they were so more involved and stuff. And when we first started out with tourism, everybody had great ideas, but then everybody crumbled off and I was the only one. I'm like, okay, let's start over again. Here we go again. And it's just so frustrating because it's such a dead end, and like you said, all the confusion of Janice doing grants for the port, for the museum, for us, and then responsibilities for us, and I'm finally figuring it all out, how a little bit, how it's all meshing together, but it's still a big bundle of confusion to me. But yeah, and we had discussed before, our tourism season takes pretty much care of itself. We were trying to focus more on an off-season or later season stuff for tourism, because the people are gonna come to Cascade Docks. I mean, but the position that I would like for us to be more involved and have more activities to, like, our merch. I mean, I would like to see a lot more involvement with tourism as far as that. I would like to go to more of the conferences and stuff. I see some of them, but like I said, I've been on tourism 2 years now, and I've been to 2 conferences. And I think that's a big miss for the ones of us that do wanna go. I know we all have jobs, and I know that's where everybody's got that standoffish where to let Janice do everything because we all work. But then still, if we're gonna volunteer for this committee, we have to commit something. That's where I'm at, you know, as far as minutes and agendas, and, you know, the big problem I have is, you know, Janice does do the agendas, but I would like to have them not the Sunday before the meeting or the Friday that I have to go to the museum to pick it up. I asked her report, can we print it out? Because a lot of times they're very overwhelming. And I would just like to have a little bit more time before the meetings, we're at the meeting, and we're just like trying to struggle through and read everything, and it's a lot. I mean, I think I would like to be able to print that off as soon as you make the agenda so that we can access. And I never got a response from why I couldn't print it off. But there's a lot, you know, and I know Janice has got a little on her plate, but I think that the committee should take a little bit more responsibility. And maybe we can get more stuff. I don't know. I think it's the big frustration, you know, and I can see where the other committee imploded, serious. That's all I got to say. Heather?
Yeah, a few things I would say, I think there's always room for committee members to take on projects or things that they're interested in. Speaking for myself, like I personally took on reviewing the STR regulations and coming to council and making a presentation for what we suggested as a committee. Like, I really care about music and bringing live music to town, so like that's something that I personally took the initiative to like do the legwork for, so. I just wanna encourage any committee members, if there's like an event, like I know you worked on Festival of Nations last year. Like, don't wait for someone to come to you and say, what do you wanna do? Like, just. Pick what you're interested in, take the initiative to like get the ball rolling and the other committee members will support you. And I would just say that it sounds to me like the museum's not interested in redoing their contract either way. I mean, though when we put words in your mouth that come the end of the extension, it's the impression I get is the museum's not interested in taking that up again. I agree with what some others have said about just, I have concerns about farming it out to like Visit Hood River or those type of entities, because I feel like a lot of people in Cascade Locks, we kind of feel like the redheaded stepchild, you know, and I just am not confident that we, like, how do we know we would get the same attention and the dedicated, you know, funneling of tourists here. I feel like that's like the gorge as a whole is a tourism site, but like how do we make Cascade Locks special? And I feel like that we kind of need to be carved out from other larger DMOs to get that like kind of special attention that we should have, so. Yeah, I don't know, those are kind of my two main thoughts.
Thank you. Heidi?
I'm very new, this is only my third meeting, and, the first one that I went to, they wanted us to vote on something that I knew nothing about. Like, didn't have a packet or it didn't have anything, so, I mean, I just feel like it's a bit disorganized and, I mean, like I said, I'm very new, that's all I really have for right now.
Thank you for being on tourism, all of you guys, Sally. I kind of feel like Heidi, even though I was on it previously years ago. Coming on board, there is no structure in my eyes at this time. But this is a good core group that wants structure, and I think that's why we came here this evening, is because we are looking for a structure, advice, and some direction from the council to what you would like to see us be, your expectations of us, because I don't think there really is a whole lot of expectation. I mean, we know what we're kind of know what we're supposed to be doing, but personally, I feel like we're out there in the wind. And we need somebody to pull us in, help us get our feet on the ground and get moving forward in a direction that the city, the council, and the committee are solid with, and we can feel proud of. And do together and work as a team and not feel that, you know, that this work is a team. Because that's how I saw the tourism committee working the last time I was on it. And they were a team, and everybody kind of knew what was going on. And I mean, okay, there were some little old ladies and they were retired and they had time to do things, but some of us are retired and that's why we volunteer, and it's our time to step in and kind of pick up, you know, and hopefully then pass on to the youngers as they age. And but that structure seems to have disappeared somewhere, didn't get paid forward. And so we need to figure it out again.
I'll call him you next, Nathan.
I mean, I would just echo the statements that have been made so far, and that, yeah, I think we do wanna be more focused, and I think you have a good group of people that really care about the work. I came on board because I've got a background in marketing and wanted to apply that to projects. And I think the one thing that I will add, or at least reiterate, is that, you know, I think a DMO in Hood River could probably do some really solid marketing work for us, but I do think it's important to have local voice. Because we that live here know what those specific issues are, how we wanna represent ourselves in ways that folks that don't live here aren't gonna know. And so regardless of what, you know, board structure we end up taking, or, you know, how we wanna carve out the mission of this group, I do think it is very important that our voice remain centered on the work. My thoughts.
Courtney?
So I'm with the flux that, you know, recent tourism committees have gone through, I would say that a benefit of a paid person, whether it's contractor, employee, or however we go with that, the benefit of that would be some continuity, from committee member, you know, from committee to committee in a sense. But to me, support staff is supporting tourism committee to be an independent committee, you know, not independent of council or the city, obviously, but to be able to stand on their own 2 feet and function. And encourage that dependent, you know, not to encourage dependency on the staff, on the hired professional, you know, stuff like website management and updates, that's something that you would want some. A level of professionalism in, you know, and hitting certain key points like that. I could absolutely understand, paying somebody to do those things, but stuff like minutes taking, tourism correspondence, social media posts, sounds like we've got an advertisement design in-house or communication with designer right here, you know, we've got people that can play roles. And it sounds like people are being used to their potential, to their desires, and it sounds like, you know. I wish I had more of a direction for people to go in, but to me, that would be the role of support staff, would be supporting that.
Tiffany?
Yes, supporting the vision of what tourism wants to do, not telling tourism what they need to do. I need to see ordinance 259, so that and we should have been provided, I feel like we should have been provided that before this meeting. I also need to understand what tourism now is, because when I was on council before, it was heads and beds, but now it sounds to me like there's been a whole bunch of other things that have been added that tourism dollars can be used for. So I would like a clearer definition of what tourism dollars can be used on. And I also need to understand how this is a 40-hour job. I mean, 40-hour week, 40-hour a week job, because you know, we're a small community. And I would, you know, I would also like to have some feedback from the hotel people that provide this tourism to see if this is something that they feel that would benefit them. I mean, because they're the ones paying it. So you know, those are some things that I would like to have answers to. But
So we got about 4 minutes left of this work session. Do you have anything, Pete? You wanna add, or?
Just got so many questions. Yeah, so one of the things I heard, and I appreciate everybody kind of sharing your viewpoints, that was really helpful for me. Who's the committee chair? And then who prepares the agenda for your meetings before the?
Then I review it.
And you review it, and then, so just, and I heard several people mention that they didn't see the packet before the meeting. How is that supposed to get distributed to?
The packets get emailed out the Thursday before the meeting. And then we print the copies of them as soon as we email them, and if you want it in person or like a paper copy beforehand, you can come get it from us, or you can print it yourself, those are the.
Is it kind of like how council runs then? So like if we want to get put on the agenda, then we take it to the mayor, and then the mayor and the city administrator work together to.
Yep.
It's sort of similar.
And then Heather would approve the agenda? Is that
Yeah,
what you're doing? Okay.
Or add topics or people want topics.
And if-
Sorry, I don't mean to be boring, but I'm like trying to understand the kind of the procedural side of
It sounds like people are learning the process.
Yeah.
That's exactly.
having some structure. So, and when do you meet? What day of the week do you meet? If the Mondays?
Yeah, first Monday of the month, typically this.
Sometimes.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
There's been challenges with meeting quorum, is that right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
up until about a month ago.
And I think in a small community like this that is volunteer based, you're gonna have people with schedule conflicts. I do think the group works pretty well to find time each month. It would be nice to be able to lock it down and say, if you're gonna volunteer, this is the day.
Yeah.
But I understand that can be unrealistic too.
And I also heard that there was challenges getting vendors paid because need to have those bills approved by the committee, is that correct? Am I understanding that right? And so when then you all can't meet, then those bills can't get approved, so then those vendors aren't getting paid. Is there a recommendation on how to streamline that?
When that happens, if the committee can't make quorum, we go to the city administrator for approval.
Is that working okay then? Thanks. Some of the questions I have.
Right. So what I really heard is communication too. So I think this is just the beginning of figuring out how to go about this, but I think tourism as a committee. At least you guys have somewhere to start talking on what direction you feel it should go. And then as council, we probably need to have another work session at some point and decide and look at these ordinances and stuff and see what it is, because I know it talks. There's so many different places to look at what we're supposed to be doing. So, and I know it talks about how long the packet's supposed to be out before the meeting. Also that the chair takes the minutes, and then you have a secretary for your group.
There is a secretary supposed to be.
There, yeah, cause there's supposed to be a secretary and all of that, and you guys would be able to see that if you got the procedures and the proper documentation, so you know, it's kinda hard to know what to do if you don't ever get the directions. Kinda like baking a cake, like if you don't have the directions, you're probably not gonna get a good cake. So,
So what the direction is, what we need to give, I think we need to give direction, I think we need to tell Jordan that
Either staff or the committee, what do you? Yeah.
needs, well, I think you need to get the proper notification, what Brenda's been talking about to the committee, so that they understand what we have in our law books that are the way it's supposed to go, and then from there on, what's the direction? Are we gonna let tourism hash this out and bring it back to us? Where
I think they should, well, we should get them procedures and all of that, so they have all the directions and whatever the ordinance 259 and all of that, get them all the information, and you guys decide what you want to do. And bring it back to council, but I think communication, and we don't just have to have, it does say that we have one meeting a year, but we can have more than that.
Yeah.
It's all about communication, and we have awesome people that are volunteering for our communities, and why not use their time rather than wasting it, because there's so much that we could be doing for our community,
That's the question, we're running out of time,
Yeah.
and so just. I'm unsure if this is the question, can tourism, if they deem it necessary, are they able to meet more than once a month?
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's something maybe when you guys get, all this information, all this structure as far as what the meeting's supposed to look like, and maybe what the job description is, the volunteer job description is. If people find time, like you said, it's always really hard,
Next week will be 3 weeks in a row for us.
Yeah, so, yeah.
So you guys know, awesome, all right.
Mayor, can I add one thing?
We're late, so I got 3 of you that wanna say one
I just
thing.
wanna say also, that,
Okay.
are we gonna move forward with the extension of the 6 months for?
I thought we had already decided that
Council.
Okay.
last meeting.
Yeah.
But we've got somebody recommending to not go out for an RFP, so why?
Well, we're asking the tourism to go back and make that decision.
Make that.
We're gonna get them the information.
Just an extension for 6 months
Yeah,
until we.
Okay, Bernard, real quick.
Yeah, so some middle ground that I could think may make sense. In lieu of hiring an additional FTE or a new FTE, maybe we take this existing contract and we grow it a little. We add some funds to it, so it's a more robust contract that provides a little more service. So tourism committee, that the staffing that we do hire for has the resources available or necessary to put these packets together in a more timely manner and get them out and do some of this work that maybe is to the standard we'd like to see. So if we increase the contract, that's an option to improve some of the issues that we're wrestling with.
All right. And thank you guys for all showing up and being here and talking to us.
Yeah, sorry I was late.
Yeah.
Glad to meet you.
Reset the room.
Okay, 5-minute recess to reset the room, and then we'll get going into regular session. Are you gonna bring out boys stuff?
Yeah.
Yes.
We're gonna talk for 5 minutes, Bernard.
Okay.
Stick around.
Okay.
Yeah, our reset.
James.
Okay.
So.
No, and it's also like, okay, well, you don't have to be a player, that's it. Like, only the most awkward minute and a half of my life, I stood there and stared out the door, you know, interrupted after me.
What are you complaining about? You had your.
I know, I got all my room.
I don't say a minute, 4 of us, or 5 of us.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, let's call a meeting to order with pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Councilmember Bump. Here. Councilmember Happy. Here. Councilmember Keller.
Here.
Councilmember Seeger.
Here.
Councilmember Pruitt.
Here.
Councilmember Kylan. Here. And Mayor Wood.
Here. All right. Additions or amendments to the agenda?
I have one amendment to the agenda, 7B. I'd like to table it for the next council meeting if the work plan is not ready to present yet.
7B.
B, yes, okay.
Do you need a motion for that or not?
We have in the past.
We have motion.
I'll make a motion to remove 7B from the agenda.
Second. All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, amending the agenda to take off the 7B and move to the 11/10/2025 meeting, passed unanimously. All right, adoption of consent agenda.
Move to adopt consent agenda, including approval of the action minutes from October 13th, 2025. And ratification of bills in the amount of $1,492,875.54.
Second.
All right, any discussion?
Just make a note, the reason it's so high,
Yes.
at almost 1.5 is the $1 million we got from the state to pay off the loan for the McCord Creek Bridge project.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's like $200,000, so it's a lot higher than.
Yeah. All right, so no other discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? All right, so the adoption of the
I think, you didn't oppose, did you?
no, he said aye.
I said aye. Yep.
Okay, yeah, it just came, it's delayed.
Adoption of the consent agenda passed with Happy making the motion, seconded by Pruitt, and everybody voted yay. Right. Appearances of interested citizens to share on a variety of perspectives on issues facing our community. Betty? No.
Yeah, I did not receive any comments, or phone.
Right, special presentations, I have treatment equipment company, Chris.
Hello?
Yeah, you're up, Chris.
You're up.
You're the-
Thanks for having me.
Yes.
So I put together a brief summary just of the last 2 months. We had a previous report for the first month. We actually came in and started service for you guys. Been working with staff and Jordan diligently to get our feet underneath us, coming in and kind of assessing what's there, what's been done. By the way, you guys have an amazing facility.
We just spent $8 million on it, we better.
Yeah, yes, I wanted to start off and say, hey, it's money well spent, it's a great facility. As typical with the treatment plant, there are some things that break and we've been addressing those and going through those. I put a lot of points in here, there's a lot of things to unwrap. And we can go through those point by point. I know there were some comments that were actually forwarded to talk about specifics. How would you guys like me to start?
Do you guys wanna just ask questions or how do you wanna go around?
Well, I think you should give an overall summary.
Okay.
Overall summary methods for the citizens to do.
Sure. So we started services for you guys on July 1st, taking over from Jacobs Engineering. We've assessed the plant, went through all the equipment, we've documented that, we put those into spreadsheets, we've actually went through and we're assessed many computer maintenance management softwares. We went through and preliminarily we was assigned maintenance X, which we're looking through the final functions on that to implement that, give us a tool to be able to communicate with you guys, to talk about immediate goals, long-term goals. And to make sure that there's documentation on things, the assets being taken care of, right? Not just us saying we're doing a great job. So we've been going through that. Also kind of feeling out the demand on the treatment plant with the industrial users, working with some of the potential people that are reporting you from FREM. Some of those bigger industrial users, going through that, the longevity of the plant, kind of how it operates. I will say is that not because of me, because of my great staff, I actually took vacation, which I haven't done in about 12 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to Italy for about 20 days, and we had a major catastrophic failure during that time. So, by the way, we've kept compliance the whole time, so we were averaging 99%, 98% removal rates across the board. The plant's handling well, but the staff addressed that, took care of it. We actually were down on 50% of the plant, running it on one side, and troubleshot that. If you guys seen a trailer at the facilities, that's actually one of my senior mechanical. So our approach coming in, and we've talked to staff, is that we like to really to get our feet under us, is wrap our hands around this, is really immerse ourselves. So I'm saying this not to make a point, but just to kind of talk about our philosophy is, Jordan has tasked me with not only running facilities, but evaluating it and then trying to streamline what we've done initially during this phase about how to optimize things, reduce costs, go through, be more fiscally responsible, everything else. To date, we've spent over 200 hours more than what I've actually built and what we actually put on our proposal. That's the normal practice we do. Now, I can't do that in perpetuity, right? Because I won't be in business. But that's what the level of emphasis that we put into the facilities to go through and thoroughly understand what we're dealing with, and then what we need to communicate to you guys. And during that period, you know, we've got a firm understanding of what the facility runs like, and shortcomings and things that may need to be addressed if we look at additional loadings and bringing industrial clients in and things like that. I've been working in concert with Anderson Perry, talking with them about what that looks like. We did get a chance to meet with Prem. I had some of my staff do the initial walkthrough with them, and we actually went and looked at their facilities in Hood River. The feeling on that is that maybe that's out a little bit as far as their needs and coming in. That may change. But we're willing to definitely work with you guys on the pre-treatment aspect and the facilities and what's needed if that changes, and if they want to actually discharge more. I will say that I'm actually pleasantly surprised in the robustness of the design of the SBRs, because the industrial port, you have a significant amount of additional loading that we weren't aware of and going through this period with the wineries and some of the businesses there. And we saw that, we tracked that as that was coming in. The plant handles very well during that. Now, the additional loading that's being talked about is much greater than that, but I think that the right technology, the plant's there to be able to accommodate that with some minor changes. One of the big things that we've seen reviewing the engineering reports, talking with Anderson Perry and everything that's changing the dynamic in this region, is pretty much the solids management piece. So that's been one of the things that we've really focused on. And unfortunately, you guys are tied to the bigger partners in this region. So we not only provide services for you guys, but we also do for Mosier, for water, wastewater, for Multnomah Falls, also for we work with some of the bigger industrial people like Hood River Juice. And because of the dynamics of what's happening at Hood River, it impacts everybody else in the region. So right now, the cost to get rid of solids, whether it's on that side of the river or here, Hood River is pretty much the only viable option. With hauling, it averages, say in a 60-mile radius, about $1 a gallon. So as we look forward, if you guys consider bringing additional people in, that's something that really needs to be looked at, because those are op costs that you guys will bear for throughout those agreements, right? So the initial capital improvements that happen in the plant is great, but really understanding what that looks like may be a significant budget issue to be talked about. So we've really tried to do a good job. Long and short, the facilities that you guys had, they weren't being used properly by Jacobs. Basically, they were using it as solids holding, and then they were hauling solids off, right? They weren't using them as digesters. So we talked to the design staff with Anderson Perry going through that. we're hoping that even though we've done significant savings and reductions in the amount of solids and what's going out, we can maybe get that to class B, which would probably half those costs again. So we don't know that yet. We have to figure that out over the next couple months, especially the cold season, because it's temperature dependent on the biology and what happens. The other portion of this is in our operational proposal and how we operate. The city doesn't have a QA/QC manual, which is required by the permit. So I'm working with some of my outside resources we have to develop one of those or get some cost to develop one of those. In essence, all that does is basically tell you how to do your laboratory tests down at the plant, how you sample it, how you do it, how you report it. So that's why it's tied to the permit. Unfortunately, I think Jacobs took that with them. So right now, almost all the laboratory tests are being done by third party, right? So we're going to outside labs, significant cost, over $3,000 a month. So what I've told Jordan is that I will put together options, so we're still waiting on pricing to come in, to be able to expand the lab down there, what that looks like, what the capital cost would look like, and then how much savings that would project, and then you can make basically an informed decision based on that ROI. It does help us significantly, like my other facility at Mosier, we're replacing the UV, we just had a high E. coli event. When that happens, you have to take immediately 5 additional tests. So you can imagine staff every 4 hours in the middle of the night driving, or the inability to drive it to an outside lab in Portland at an hour at a time with billable hours. It becomes very cumbersome. So it adds some flexibility, but I want to put that together, and that's something that we'll bring forward for you guys to consider and look at, and then what those savings would look like. I'm sorry that the pictures don't do a great representation. What that's supposed to mean is basically it's a solids test to show that we've gotten the solids up to about 3%. You can also see how much we've dewatered the solid tanks using chemicals. And then some clear water that basically is being returned to the plant. Right, so historically, what would have happened is that just would have been hauled off to another treatment plant to be able to treat and stabilize and then charge you guys. So that's part of the optimization that we're trying to perform at the treatment plant. That was a bit long-winded as a summary, I'm sorry.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay. Specific questions, I think there was one maybe on the Peterson CAT proposal on the generators. And I'm sorry, just the ease of our staff time, we actually priced out all 3 treatment plants. So the pricing on this that was included, you guys were actually the biggest of the generator, the 350K dub. So it's about $2,681 to do a full complete yearly PM on the generator. With that, however, $1,345 is a load test, which is not a requirement, because when we test the generator facility, it actually picks up loads, the equipment that's already running. I would recommend that like every 3 to 4 years, where they bring it in and they stress test the generator, right? But right now, weekly, it comes on, it runs equipment at the plant. Really what we want to do is go through the hoses, the oils, check the internals, go through the pressure and stuff. And so the cost of that would be about $1,300 per year. It goes up a little bit over year 2 and year 3. That is the vital piece of equipment. It's a Schedule 2 emergency power generation. It's required by the permit to make sure the plant runs. But as you all know, we get inclement weather, and without the generator, we won't provide treatment.
I have a question. Who is Anderson Perry? Just so I can.
Anderson Perry is the design engineer. They did the last plant upgrades.
Okay. And then did we have a generator that don't work or is going out or?
No, it's very functional. However, what happens is the fuel filters, the belts, everything, there's probably 8 to 10 things that are vital for maintenance to be able to keep up on that. just like your car.
Right, right.
So, at that point, I do have mechanics, right, and my guys are very good, however, once you get into some of these specialized parts and things like that, it's hard to source it, it's easier to bring people in that are certified, not only that, if there's a problem, we have some fallback, contingency to be able to say we brought in somebody that was certified on equipment.
Okay. Courtney.
How old is that generator?
I believe it was part of the upgrade, so it's probably 2.5 years. I would have to double check that, but I think that was part of the upgrade.
Sure,
Yeah.
we'll check.
What is it a Peterson cat generator?
Yeah.
What's there?
Yeah, it's a cat.
Thanks for the presentation, as the more you talk, the more I realize I have to learn about, like, how this all works, and, there's a lot of acronyms and, what goes in and how it comes out, I'm really curious, and to come down and get a tour.
Absolutely.
And I think that'd be really helpful, the question I had was, we've had some DEQ fines in the past.
Yep.
Are you familiar with what caused those, and then what we can do to prevent that sort of thing from happening in the future?
Yeah, so sometimes, you have human error, which basically, with proper operations and forethought, those can be, designed out. So having safeguards and checks and going through and matrices to be able to make sure that's done. So example is, we took over July 1st, and during that, there's a transition period between Jacobs and us where we're running the plant and we would report for the following month, but they have to report the digital DMR and the EPA system for the previous month. They unfortunately missed some samples and they didn't test. I think it was alkalinity, right? And the state, deems that as a Schedule 1, a Schedule 2, and a Schedule 3, depending on the severity of that. It could be a $10,000 fine per day per parameter. So there's huge monetary risk associated with that. So not to say we're perfect, right? But we take pride in to make sure that we put checks and balances and take additional time to make sure that those things are not done. Now, that said, when I left and we had a catastrophic failure in equipment, we definitely could have had a permit violation because my staff called the manufacturer, Aqua Aerobics. We got the tech support online. We went through. Normally what happens is you fly those people out, right? And that's $6,000 to $8,000 to put somebody on a plane, put them out here, everything else. We built a rapport over the phone. We did everything in-house. The overtime with that, everything was shouldered, so that didn't get passed to the city. And we met permit and we fixed it. We found out what the parts, the components were. We internally fixed that and rectified it. That said, it could have been something so catastrophic that we would have violated permit. So equipment can always break, as we like to say, Murphy lives in the treatment plant, right? So I don't say that something happened. Not that I'm superstitious. Yes.
Yeah, I think to your specific question about the fines that we have paid.
Yes.
We paid 17,000 in the last fiscal year. And it was accumulation of violations over the prior 18 months. One of them was a root blocked the main sewer line on Wanapot, came up out of the manhole. And then as Chris said, human error. We have our staff go on the weekends and they have to read the numbers and then report them. They're like 9 digits long and you miss a digit and things happen. So it was an accumulation of a bunch of different things, and EPA or DEQ went, okay, here's what you owe us for your violations. I don't know I'd have to go back and double check the exact reasons, but that's it.
It was the accumulation of a variety of things, not just one instance.
Correct, yes.
Yes, yeah, I thought there was some sort of bill, discharge fine that we saw. Like our system got overloaded and,
There was one during the construction of the plant, for the new vault, they had just put in the marine pump station. And they literally just installed the month before, and the call out emergency system didn't work. Nobody got called and it just overflowed. I actually don't know if we've gotten a fine from that one yet. Maybe we did. I don't remember, but yeah, I know, there was the one on one. I'd have to double check.
So I guess that was what I was thinking of, and I was just wondering, as you were learning the plan, I mean, how much have you guys had a chance to go through and just push every button and test those sorts of systems to see that those things are working and verify the condition of the equipment?
Well, and that's the thing, is like I said, we've way overshot and blown our hours that we ever, and because that's what good operators do. They go in and they try to break stuff. I figured,
Yes.
but understand what caused it
Push
to
every
trend.
button.
Yeah, and like, where does it go? What happens? How do I fix it? How do I train my staff to do that? So that's part of the process, and that's being involved, invested, and making sure that we're gonna run it just like I would have if I was, I was your public works director, right? When I worked for other cities, you champion that. That's part of your ownership, and you do that. So we've went through and done a bunch of that. That doesn't mean that we've canvassed everything. Some equipment is very updated and stuff. Some of the pump stations, maybe not. There's pieces of equipment that could fail, but that's important for us to categorize that, put that in the system, and then tell you guys, maybe in 5-10 years, what that is. You can do capital planning and budgeting to say to address those, whether that's with grants, whether that's with, the state revolving fund, whatever that looks like. But it's important for us to communicate that to you, saying, hey, there might be needs here. These things are beyond us just, changing and putting oil and putting a coat of paint on it. These are things that may need to be addressed, especially if the incoming characteristics with significant industrial users and industrial and stuff. If that changes, then a lot of things will happen. But back to Jordan's point is that human error, mechanical failure, and then there are just plant performance aspects. And I would say is that the plant that's been designed, there's a ton of capacity there. And SBRs are very good. I know this is a public record, so I should be careful what I say, is that DEQ has not pushed down nutrient, BNR, biological nutrient constraints on the plant yet, because our receiving waters are very good. But it has much more capabilities from a nutrient reduction than just a conventional plant. So SBRs it's a good fit. Now, I didn't look back through the history. I don't know if there was TSS loadings, removal rate, failures on the performance with Jacobs. I would have to look further into that, but I just know that we've done a deep dive to make sure we can understand as much as we can, as quick as we can, to make sure that we're doing a good job.
All right. Tiffany, a couple questions on the QA/QC manual. Is that, does each company do their own, or is it pretty much like standard?
I haven't got a straight answer from DEQ. So, and to be honest, I've been doing this since the 90s, most of it in Washington. And so talking to each permit manager at each of the sites, I've gotten 3 different answers.
So Jordan, I wonder if that's something we can't just ask Jacobs. Do they have that? Can they return it to us?
No, we asked, they wouldn't give it to us.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, they specifically told us when we're leaving, we're taking this with us. And that we had to figure out, essentially create our own logbook that matches what DEQ wants in the permit. Right? If I'm understanding, Chris?
Yeah.
Yeah, they would not give us the book they were using.
Yeah.
Who does the book belong to? The city?
The operator,
Treatment or the guys?
That's
Because we got a
that's a
long
point of
standing
contention.
relations.
Yeah, it's a point of contention, is that is it the city's, IP, right?
Mhm.
Because they're the permit manager and they paid you to perform that, and whatever was done is
Right.
associated with that? Or is it that, well, we created it, it's our property, it leaves when we leave, and that's been their stance.
Okay.
And then I have one more question.
Okay.
You said cost to get rid of solids was $1 a gallon, and we need to bring in more people. What do you mean by that? To get the cost down.
No, to get the costs down effectively, what we need to do, the path that we've done is basically we're bringing in chemicals and we're concentrating the solids, right? So it stays in the system longer. And then we've actually, and Jordan, I was waiting for, and you have a great city administrator that watches everything. He's like, well, why is our power bill up, right? So that was the first thing, is like, they're watching everything that happens as they should be, and they're minding the stores, that we have to run the blowers longer to run the system this way to be able to thicken it and reduce the solids. So maybe there's $2,000 to $3,000 higher power cost, but it may save, $90,000 a year in solids cost. Or if Jacobs was here, it would have been $500,000.
So 2 to 3,000 a year or.
I think it was about $2,000 a month
Yeah,
more
it-
at the
it- it's
highest.
steadily increasing over the last like 2 years or so.
Yeah,
Partly because our rates have gone up, that's part of it. But yeah, there was a noticeable increase since TEC had taken over, so.
yeah. Yeah, so between the previous month and that, and basically we had increased the blower operations like 60-70%. And that was to run the digesters the way that the engineers have designed them, right? And that gave us the ability to reduce the solids. Now that said, those are actually some of the older equipment that wasn't part of the upgrade. And so there are avenues that we could look at from energy grants with Oregon Energy Trust to actually look at when those are at end of life. Or they need to be rebuilt with significant cost on the maintenance side, they could be upgraded to new technology and you guys could get grants with that are more efficient. So those are things that we could help you guys look at. We've done that a ton.
Tiffany, was that all for you? All right, Bernard and you. Bernard?
Okay, thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Mr. Caleb, for the presentation. This is very interesting and it looks like you've hit the ground running. I really appreciate all the dedication you're demonstrating. So I was the one who submitted a couple of those questions. I'd just like to review the few that I'd like to hear a little more. So we talked a little about, the plant's ability to handle major storm events. I don't know if you know this, but I used to be a city administrator for the town from 2007 2011, and we had some some failures, if you will, plant failures on big rain events where we just couldn't keep up, and we ended up dumping raw sewage in the Columbia. Now, I think because it was such an extraordinary event, I think DEQ cut us some slack. But needless to say, I don't like being the council member in a city where that ends up dumping raw sewage in the Columbia. So can you talk a little about, are some weather events just not manageable, or is that something the city could manage and minimize, if not eliminate, in our operations when it comes to big storm events? That's my first question.
Right. So absolutely. So peaking factors are a value on the design side when you build a facility about how much inflow and I&I that you have coming into the system, right? Whether it's a closed system with stormwater, or combined system with stormwater, or it's a closed system with just sanitary sewer. But most treatment facilities have a peaking factor. Sometimes on the coast, we'll see a 14-to-1. I mean, they're huge because of the salt water and everything else. You guys are, I think, about a 2-to-1. It's actually pretty manageable. I would say one of two things is that one of the ways that we feel that we combat it much better is that we looked at the original design, and when the wastewater comes in, right, the secondary treatment, which is the biological step with the bumps, there's a design point, the way the engineers put that together, depending on the flow and the loadings. And we initially looked at the way that it was being ran previously by Jacobs, and it was a huge red flag for us. So we went right to the design engineers and started putting in data and looking at that and corresponding with it. And we doubled our biological bumps that are actually in the system. So as your flows come up, and you actually bump or you wash some of those out during your decant phase when the plant's running, you still have more left in the plant to do the work, which means you wouldn't violate. They were running at half of the mixed liquors that we were. Now we're still below the design. That's just because we're not at the full loads the plant was designed. We're at like half of the design, right? But that was one of the big things. I would say that if there were things, and that was one of the recommendations from Anderson Perry, that if like Frem came in and they brought in all these additional flows, you would want to put EQ tankage in front of the plant to be able to stabilize and hold those flows and then meter it through. That way you don't have those excursions that you talked about.
Okay, thank you. And let me, if I could, Mayor, just a few more here. So let's see. We covered that. And then, I had asked, I noted also that $83,000 savings in biosolids as a result of your enhanced, treatment there. I assume, again, you've had, you guys have been there since July, so we're coming on 5 months here. Are there any other cost efficiency measures that you're exploring that you haven't just mentioned tonight?
Well, I think there will be significant savings for you guys to consider, the council, once we can put together the laboratory costs, the efforts, and what that looks like and what we're spending in outside labs. And when Jordan and I sat down and we did this collaborative kind of partnership and put this together, I wanted to make sure that the contract was structured. So if I saved $86,000 in solids, that wasn't behind the curtain. That's just not in a silo where that's profit to me, right? And unfortunately, some of these big national companies are set up that way. So that's a direct pass to you guys. That doesn't save me anything, but that hopefully shows our value to you guys. So I think with the laboratory setting, that would be a savings too, that we can reduce our monthly cost to you. It provides a better service for the community. And we have more flexibility to make sure that the thing we talked about, like if there's a permit violation, so you have to do a certain set of tests. And if one of those tests is high, and I don't have the flexibility because it's a weekend or I can't send it out to an outside lab, I can actually make changes in the plant, take additional tests, and then it averages it for the month. Which means if we have inside laboratory, I have the flexibility to do that. It doesn't skew the performance, just means I can monitor it more.
That's a great point. Yeah.
Much.
Okay. And then my last one was, well, two things. One, with regards to the QA QC manual, look, if I could ask Mr. Bennett, I really feel like, unless you've already done it, I feel like this is a legal question. Did you ask Cleveland if we could, if we have rights to that manual? That surprises me that we do not have rights to that. That's, I don't know. We've worked with software companies who built software systems, and the stuff they built while we own that, and I feel like this falls in the same category. So I would love for you to have a quick phone call with him to say, this is what they're claiming. Is that what the law says? Because I'd be surprised if they had a legal case behind that. So, and then the last thing for Mr. Caleb. So, my question is, it sounds like you might have mentioned this. So, do you do full utility, sewer utility operations contracts beyond just the treatment plant? Meaning, pumps, pipelines, et cetera. Do you guys do that type of work as well?
Yeah, so TEC developed the treatment arm, which currently, out of necessity. So treatment equipment has actually been around since 1969, so before I was alive. And they represent many manufacturers, from blowers to UV to everything inside the fence line. When I was running facilities, I bought equipment from them, went through. I had the opportunity to jump over and do that. Now, unfortunately, because of the things with the tariffs and things being not engineered and manufactured in the US, the service is really bad. And for me to continue to sell things to cities, it has to be a relationship and a rapport. So to do that, I had to create a maintenance staff to take care of that equipment. And then how do I keep those guys busy? So I'm like, well, let's run plants again half the time. So all our sales that we do from water and wastewater and industrial, we also service, maintenance, and rehab that. So we have a contractor license in Washington, Oregon, and Idaho. I have staff right now going over to Joseph, Oregon. They just left Idaho, doing projects and rehabbing and rebuilding stuff. So we do that. And then also we do water and wastewater operations on top of it. So sales, service, and operation.
Okay, well, the reason I ask is that when I was there, I know that we had particular issues and pieces of our infrastructure that, time had seen better days. And I know that, since I left, there's been, we've lost some kind of expertise in our utility department. And there's part of me that says it would be nice to have your guys, and we would do this. Obviously, this would be, I'm not sure how, like a contract amendment, where we would hire you guys to actually do a survey of our pumps, of our pipelines, more than that was done. We just, in this big capital project, I'm not sure what they did there, but if our pumps, could use an expert eye, it sounds like you guys can do that work.
Yeah, I've got
Okay.
guys actually factory certified by probably a half dozen, manufacturers. So we do that a lot. I just put out 6 quotes for treatment plants up north doing exactly
Excellent.
that.
Okay. Well, I think that's something that the city should keep in mind if we want to kind of continue to evolve and improve our utility, our sewer utility, having someone like yourself come in, give an additional opinion, and then we basically come up with kind of a checklist or a project list of, okay, we're moving these things forward. These are the next things on the list that we should be looking at to improve or replace, and I guarantee you, it would surprise me, some of those pumps, if we replace them, we could reduce energy costs, we could improve efficiency and lower our burden. So those are all things that I want us to keep in mind as a council as we oversee this utility.
All right, thank you, Bernard. Courtney.
So did this, I wanna talk about this QAQC logbook, that was tied into the permit. That's my understanding, right? That it's a requirement of the permit.
Correct.
And then, so is that logbook something that needs to be turned into DEQ? Is there like some accountability on that?
Yeah, so typically what happens, what was happened at the other facilities when we came in, you usually have a sit down and an interface with the permit manager from DEQ. Now, unfortunately, we've had multiple things that have happened to kind of delay that, but we've reached out and usually the permit manager will come in and they do like a soft inspection. They'll do the interface with us and meet and greet and say, okay, what's here? They walk through the facilities. That hasn't happened. And that's usually when they identify that, they say, oh, you don't have a QA/QC, or where's your emergency response plan? Or let's look in the labs and let's look at your laboratory equipment. Is it certified? Like we just had people come in and certify the lab equipment today to make sure that it's in, it's been calibrated and documented. So that would usually happen at that step. That hasn't happened. And like I said, I have a bunch of resources with people that are 30, 40-year people that have done this a bunch, that are semi-retired. Instead of me paying, an engineer at $350 an hour, I have these people that want to work, that's what they've done for half their life. So I'm putting some estimates together with somebody, what would it look like for them to do the QA/QC under our umbrella, and then I can bring that cost to you. I know that we did that at Mosier, and I thought it was a very high number. It was $5,000. I think that it should be something less than half of that, but I have to get the numbers back for my resources, and I have them looking at that now, so I can give you an estimate. But that would be part of also expanding the lab, because that identifies and tells you everything you're gonna do in that lab. So if you guys say, well, it makes sense not to send this stuff out and it saves money, then we have to include that equipment, those steps, those procedures, everything would be in that manual.
And so, Jordan, presumably everything that needed to get turned in from that previous logbook was submitted and turned in. There's nothing that we're in arrears on, so to speak.
That I'm aware, yes, unless there's. something out of-
And like I said, there hasn't been a formal documentation of deficiency, right? Because DEQ hasn't come in. And the state permits, the DMRs are turned in, everything's submitted, the bench sheets, the outside laboratory test, everything's there. I will say is that when we took Mosier over, and that may have been different dynamics, Jacobs had dropped that after running that for 10 years. And I had nothing. There was keys on the counter, there was no turnover, there was no QA/QC, there was no O&M manuals. And so the city asked them for information. They didn't respond. They actually had to take the attorney and do a public information request, and then they delivered a couple 100 pounds, and nothing was there that was usable. So the state actually they found 240 violations of record retention that was against basically the time that Jacobs had operated that. So they didn't keep any of that documentation and go through that even after we demanded it by legal. So, I'll take that back. There was one that was performance based because of the UV system. So out of 240, 239 were record retention. We're required to keep everything for 5 years on site and then provide that to them if they come in. That wasn't the case when Jacobs took it. So I think that's standard mode of practice for them, and I'm sorry to say that.
Not to sound presumptive about our current contract, but is there a way to put verbiage in our contract that says that we own that for future generations?
We can do an amendment. Yeah.
And I'm not too savvy on what the current contract or rules and regulations are. I don't wanna assume that you're gonna take it with you, like Jacob said, but, you know, it's just something I'm thinking about for future, you know? It might be something good to look at, and then you mentioned EOL on some stuff. Do you foresee any end of life issues coming up in the next year?
I think, the blowers that have the high energy use, they're at that age where they're gonna look at bearings going out, seals, full rebuilds on those. We always use the rule of thumb for the last, 30 some years. If it costs more than 50% of what something is new, that's when you start evaluating, is it money well spent? Especially if there's grants, because there's more efficient equipment. If you can get another 20 years out of something new, that's when you would make that informed decision. So we can help put that together. I think those blowers. And then I think the solids piece is something to keep your eyes on, because I support and work with all the consultants in the Pacific Northwest, with all the engineers. We service all the cities. And that's a changing dynamic. There's a lot of things happening. And what we do now with the biosolids is not what we're gonna do in 5 years. And because of that, that's something that we need to keep our ear to the ground if it changes, because costs could spiral out very quick. So.
Anybody else have any questions before we move on? No? Thank you so much for coming and giving us an update and all that.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Yep, and here, rest off, I'll do tomorrow on a couple things.
Okay, absolutely.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right, moving on to the BPA contract, the power account executive Kevin Benzina.
Yes,
Is here. Thank you for your patience.
now I get the hot seat.
Yes.
It's interesting on the tourism. I go to Hood River a lot. And I fly by here, and I just drove in here, so I called my wife right now, I said, "Will you come down here and stop at Cascade Locks, because you guys have a few breweries and stuff." I didn't even know that.
We're cool.
I always just jump on the bridge and cross over, even though Stevenson's, but I've never go further than, so it's something that, so.
We got some good ice cream.
Yeah, the tallest ice cream cone in Oregon.
Oh, nice, so yeah, so I need to stop by, so, but yeah.
So council, I can read the report I presented, or we can just jump straight.
I might have a short presentation. I started bringing materials that goes over the questions. You guys asked some really good questions. I mean, I've done a few of these. You guys probably have the most.
Yeah, I think, we'll just go straight to Kevin and save some time here, so he's reading this for a few minutes.
So I'll try to touch on real quickly and I'll probably answer a lot of your questions.
Okay.
We're in the process of doing new 20-year contracts. I've been a bond for 25 years, so I worked on the last 20-year contract, this one. Hopefully I won't do the next one. Yes, good question on why is it not 20 years? The contract's technically 19 years. It takes 3 years to implement. So you'll sign, you'll start working on implementation, and then you start taking power deliveries under it in FY 2029. But it's gonna take 3 years to set them up. The load following one's a little bit easier, but we have other products, Spice and Block, they're a little bit more complicated that Seattle City Lights takes, Tacoma takes, some of these bigger, huge utilities take these more complicated contracts.
Can you explain the difference between load, follow, block, and slice really quick?
Yes.
For
So Slice is, for load following, we just sell, you guys pay us, we keep your lights on, and we'll send you a bill. There's these other contracts that these utilities have these big hydro resources themselves, and they want to manage their own hydro fleet and take Bonneville to supplement also in. And so they manage their resources, they manage the Bonneville contract, and they get every hour, they get a percentage of what comes down this river of the power. So they get the actual power being generated at the time that it's coming through the dam. So if it's not flowing, they bring a little bit of electricity, they need to go out in the market and buy it themselves or generate on their own resource. That's called a slice product. Or the block product is they just buy a flat amount of power. So they, if your load is, it shapes between 20 and 40 megawatt hours, it's shaped, they can buy a 30 megawatt block and then serve. But they just get the energy flat. They got to buy their own resources or do something with the extra energy. So that's the other product. And then so load volume is for more like a utility like you guys that doesn't have a bunch of resources, doesn't have the ability to schedule hourly to match your loads. So we're going in this, so it takes 3 years to implement. We stopped them in 2044 because of Washington, because they have this rate, and it'll probably change. But they have to have 100% green, I'm not supposed to say that, but renewable resources before 2045. So technically Bonneville, we are about 97% clean. We have 3% because we buy from the market a little bit. So we've got 3% carbon in our fuel mix. Washington's saying 0. So we just stopped at 44, so we're not going to 45, but there's 98% chance that we extend it 1 more year if the customers all agree upon it, and then it'll be a true 20-year contract. So that'll probably happen. How that process happens, I'm not sure, but hopefully I won't be around to find out. So that gets to that. So I want to talk a little bit real quickly on your load today and what you're paying today. Somebody might think of one of those questions. That was a good question. So today your load is we set our load so it's in for FY25 for this last year. We set that was under the last rate case, which was 24-25. We set that forecast a year before that rate case went live. So we have your forecast. We set it back in like 2022. We set what we think your load is going to be. And at that time for FY25, it was 4.52 average megawatts. With your tier 1 power, which was set back in 2010, was 2.378. Your above high watermark load or your tier 2 is 2.149. I'm a little bit new to this account. You had another Kevin before that managed this. This is like shocking to me because this is what this isn't good when you have this much, when the percentage base is that large compared to tier 1 energy. You're paying a lot for tier 2, and your utility is reliant on 50% of your utility load is reliant on the market. Market is really volatile. It is big resources that provide firm energy. They're just not a thing anymore. It's just we're in this weird time that you cannot build a new flat resource. Like it's either natural gas, coal, but you can't really do those anymore with carbon restrictions. Nuclear, you're not going to do. So really your only real resource, if you want a flat amount of power, is solar and battery, the combination of both of those. And that's not cheap either. You're probably looking at $100 a megawatt for that. So it's just a weird time that you have to serve that above high watermark load or tier 2 load is not cheap. And we do have the rate. Somebody had asked what you're paying for your power. This for FY25 was $60.25 a megawatt hour. Right now, tier 1 power is at $36 megawatt. So it's almost double of what you pay for your tier 1 power for that energy you buy from us that serves the 2.3 megawatts. It goes up to $70.66 this next rate for FY26. So currently this month you're being billed $70.66. And like I said, it's just volatile because it's basically you're buying whatever resources are out on the market. Bonneville, we do a portfolio, so we go out and look and buy. We know what load we need to buy for. We'll start purchasing those a couple years in advance. We'll find a good deal. We'll start just mixing it all together and try to get the best deal possible. The power prices, when we were out looking for around $100 a megawatt hour. So we were really getting pretty nervous, but we were able to work in a few cheap deals and get it down to 70. But at that time, it was right after that cold snap we had on Martin Luther King Day, it was like 2 years ago. And that drove the whole energy, we just had a huge crisis at that time. Power prices went up to $1,500 a megawatt hour that weekend, and it really drove just the whole market up for the whole year. People, all the power marketers got real nervous after that. It's kind of come down since then, but it just takes another big cold spell for everybody to react and make the prices go up again. So the next year, yeah, $70, and following years down back to 67.40. So we're able to strike some better deals for the tier 2. And that's your loads today. Now let's step into loads in the future when you go sign this contract. Really what we're gonna try to do is just manage your tier 2 load or your load above your contract high water mark. Really, a really sweet deal got negotiated in, and thanks to NRU, I see you guys remember, they were a big proponent of this, but to try to protect these small utilities, because the large city lights, these big utilities, they can manage, buy resources, do this stuff, but a small utility, not gonna go out there and build a big resource and try to take that on. So it's just too much risk, it's hard to do, to serve, to go try to serve 2.1 megawatts of your load, trying to build a solar farm, because solar farms capacity is 20%. So you would have to bring on a huge, you'd have to be a 10 megawatt solar farm to serve that 2 megawatt loads. So what we did is all these customers that are under 5 megawatts have a right that they can access up to 5 megawatts of contract high water mark. So contract, to make say simpler, tier 1 energy, the $36 cheap power that we offer. We will offer it up to 5 megawatts. So as your load, so this first time, which I'll work with Jordan on, but in 2027, we're going to do the forecasting for that future rate case that's under this new contract. And we'll take your loads at that time and we think they're going to be, and as long as it's under 5, we'll just push all those tier 2 load into your tier 1 bucket. So up to till you get to that. And then you probably, like right now, you're at 4.5 megawatts. I'm not sure how much growth you'll have between now and 2027, but whatever that might be. So if it's still under 5, we'll push it all of that tier 1 energy, which is pretty stable rate, which right now is $36. It could go up a few more dollars, but not much, because we got a system that's paid for. So it's really not going to increase. I think you might see in the news about the Snake Rivers being removed, those dams. That would be the only thing that really would impact that rate if those dams were to be removed, because we'd have to go buy $100 power replacement. So hopefully, I don't think it's going to happen. That'd be the only thing really I could see forecasted to take those rates up. So we'll work with that. But yeah, your rates will have substantially decrease starting in 2029 or in October of 2028. Because we'll push that all in that tier 1 rate. So what you're paying for power today for that tier 2 at $70 a megawatt hour will go down to $36, $37 energy charge. And I went back and looked at a couple of your bills. The energy charge makes up about 80% of the charge on your bill. So your bill's around $200,000 a month. 80% of that's energy charges. So there's a few different charges on there that cover if your load is different, if your load profile, like when you peak, is different than our hydro system that peaks. If there are variations when we can peak our system compared to when your load peaks, you have to pay for that difference because we need to make up that difference. So if your load profile matched exactly what our energy profile was off our federal system, the dams, you wouldn't pay that additional 20%. That's really the 20% extra cost coming in because your load's coming in a little different than how we actually generate the electricity. So that takes it up to the 5 megawatts. And then what your next piece, which a lot of your questions start focusing on, is what do we do when it gets with resource development and we get above the 5 megawatts? What do we have to do with that? So once you grow beyond the 5, there is going to be 4 options that you'll need to have to come up with a decision on. It'll be next year. You'll need to make this decision, and I would work with NRU on this. I'm sure they're going to have workshops, or you're going to have to make a decision whether you want to lean on Bonneville for 100% of your tier 2 for the whole length of the contracts, called long-term tier 2, and you just purchase the tier 2 power from us like you do today. Or you have option 2, or option B, is you have a block amount of tier 2. Let's say we're gonna wanna serve our tier 2 up to 5 megawatts, and if we grow below above, so you got 5 tier 2, 5 tier 1, we grow above 10 megawatts, we're gonna buy those resources ourselves. We'll go figure it out and build resources ourselves. So that's option 2. Option 3 is we want to build for the first phase. If we grow beyond the 5 megawatts, we want to build the first 5 megawatts of resources, and then we'll take the tier 2 product beyond that. So then option 4 is we'll just take the 5 megawatts from you guys, from Bonneville, and then we'll develop all our own resources. So that's option 4.
Bernard has a question real quick. Bernard?
Well, I was gonna let him finish his pitch and then if I could, Mayor.
Okay, all right, go ahead and finish.
Can you repeat what this third option was again?
Third option is the reverse of 2, where you say, I want to develop resources for an X amount of energy. So I want to develop resources up to 5 megawatts, and if our load grows, let's go back to that 5 megawatts of your base load of your tier 1, your load grows 5 megawatts. You want to say, I'll serve that first 5 with my own resources, and if it grows beyond the 5, we'll take your long-term tier 2 product.
So when you say our own resources, you mean like solar, like?
Whatever you want to do, solar, wind. The problem with Oregon, you can't, there's not a lot you can build, like you can't, so it's really solar or wind, and
Thank you.
And then there's ways to, if you took the first option, the option 1, lean on, to take all of Bonneville tier 2, long-term tier 2, and I'm not sure, you have to work with NRU, but that's probably what they advise you to do, is with this type of utility, I wouldn't be forced into the resource development. You can't take on that risk. That's just, so they're advised that, but then there's ways within this contract you could develop resources and still take that long-term tier 2, but still bring on small stuff if you wanted to. Anything less than 1 megawatt nameplate, you can bring on and offset. If you know your load's growing beyond that 5, you can manage that to say, well, I think we can do better with our own resources, or there might be reasons you might want to do a resource yourself, because you know what the tier 2 prices are going to be, around $70, $60, $70. You think you can do something better yourself, or there might be reasons you might want to bring a solar project on. The reasons as long as it's under 1 megawatt nameplate, you can bring that on, and we'll recalculate it, and you could offset that tier 2 cost. You could manage there. There is also up to 5 megawatts or half of your contract high water mark. It's the wrong day. Contract high water mark load, which would be about 2.5 megawatts for you guys. So you could bring on a resource that's 2.5 megawatt nameplate, and manage that with your tier 2 energy. And it would offset, whenever you do this, it would offset your tier 1 potentially until your load grew into it. But that's basic, that's a lot of for a lot of information really fast.
All right, Bernard.
Okay, thank you, sir. What was your last name again? I apologize.
Mozina.
I'm sorry?
Mozina.
Yeah. I was actually here in 2010 with Kevin Farley negotiating that contract. So I've definitely got my battle wounds from this process, and I appreciate you leading us through it again. I know they're not easy. So a few follow-up questions. So I'm kind of curious did I hear you right? When this contract gets renegotiated, we'll get a new contract high watermark allocation taking us to 5, and then our tier 2 will then rise to that level. Is that what I'm hearing?
Your tier
I'm sorry, tier 1. Our tier 1 will rise to that. So our costs, we'll see right now you're saying we're paying about 2 megawatt a year is at tier 2. Once this thing gets updated, all that's going to go drop to tier 1. Did I hear that right?
Yes.
Wow. Okay. So I assume, Jordan, you're hearing this, and I mean, this is gonna be a huge change in our forecast costs for running the electric utility once this thing kicks in. This is a dramatic savings in our expenditures to run that utility, which I'm thrilled about. Oh my gosh, this is such good news. So
I roughly did some numbers, so it's 50,000 a month about.
that is incredible. Yeah, do the math. That's that's $600,000 a year for our ratepayers. That's amazing. Okay, so I just want to confirm I understand that news properly. And then the next thing, this is kind of I don't know if it's one of those big challenging questions, but we just got a report from our city administrator who went to an OMEU conference, and they listened to a bunch of big wigs from the energy industry, and there was this consistent drum that like AI and the big techs, they are just consuming crazy amounts of energy. They're growing, leaps and bounds, and it's putting pressure on energy markets across the country. And I can't help but hear this story, and this is the two questions I want to ask. One, why can't utilities go, Facebook, Google, whoever, you want more power? You need to be going and build it. Go build solar with battery backup in the desert in these remote spaces. And you're not going to put your burden, your need for data on everybody else. That was my first. Now understand that logistics can be challenging. And to me, okay, if you don't want to do that, then utilities, we're going to charge you $150 a megawatt hour. And you can either pay that, and then basically, again, by doing that, now you're helping the rest of us who don't want to take on that burden. You're basically subsidizing the small people, if you will, because we know they have crazy amounts of money, So if you want to do that, then you pay a lot, so you can address some of the burden we're going to feel as a result of this power grab. Can you talk to those two issues?
Yeah, I mean, that's why we're stressing, it's my personal feeling, don't wanna say it's Bonneville's position at all, but that's like, we wanna get these contracts signed and lock up that federal system, that $36 power, and then you guys will have it locked up for the 5 megawatts, have your marks set. That was a risk, I was around RD too, it's like, get these things signed, you wanna lock it up, but you don't want the Facebooks and people like kicking this is a really awesome resource mix that we have, and it's really, it's all paid for, it's really inexpensive, so Facebook's gonna come to us, because they know they can look at our rates as public and saying, we want this power, we want the 30, and we get it all the time, they come, we want that $36 power, well, that's already taken, our customer, we have a customer base that we have. So, Northwest Power Act, we have 20-year agreements, and once I will feel better once we get all of them signed and set, but and then that $36, that what you're seeing with the Facebooks and stuff is that tier 2 rate. That's what's driving that rate up, is that tier 2 is just the market and what market resources, and it's about $100 a megawatt hour. It's cheap, it's more 125. If you want to build a nuclear, I've seen 150. And that's what those Facebook and people are faced with, is buying that. And they have to develop their own resources. They can't buy from Bonneville. So they have to go build their own or buy from the market. But as more people buy from the market, it's going to dry it up and drive that price up. So.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate the help here.
All right, Courtney.
Did I understand you correctly? Kind of piggyback off of previous points. We were talking about getting that tier 1 price. But I don't know if I heard you correctly or not. You had mentioned that if we do go over that 5 megawatt mark, then now we will be forced to make one of these 4 decisions. So it's not really a guarantee necessarily. It's like hey, if you guys keep your energy consumption under this level, we can guarantee you this price point. But once we exceed that level, now we don't have that option.
It's similar to what you guys are doing today, where you buy the tier 2 from us today. It's just you'll pay a higher rate for everything above the 5. So you need to, so once you work, if you have a new industry coming here, you need to have that discussion with them and say, hey, you know, this is the cost for power for everything above the 5. There's ways around that where you can integrate small resources to offset that if you want to try to offset the tier 2. Or I guess there's another question you guys asked me here a little bit, is on consumer owned. So you could have a utility come in and say, well, you need to put a resource behind your load, like you need to integrate a resource within your load. So you could, you know, they could put solar back there or something there to offset it a little bit. So you could have the, you know, the utility, whatever new load comes in there, you said you had some. You have the lumber product, but you have the cyber.
Couple small data centers.
Data centers, yeah. So you can have the data center, but you need to bring solar, but something behind your load there too, because or else you're faced with this, you know, tier 2 pricing.
So I'm still missing something, and I'm sure it's totally on my part. You had mentioned that we will push everything into the tier 1 bucket that we have now, as long as we stay under that 5 megawatt mark. And we will be able to have that $36.
Yeah, whatever it's at that time.
Right.
It would be.
And then so you're saying that those 4 options apply to what happens to everything over 5 megawatts? Like only everything over 5
Yes.
megawatts, we still get to keep that bucket no matter what?
No matter what.
Okay.
But you're gonna have to make a decision end of next year, you know, fall of next year. How, it's a little bit weird because you need to make that decision next year for the next 20 years. That load that grows above that 5 megawatts, how do you wanna serve it? Do you wanna be forced to build a resource to serve it? Do you just wanna lean on Bonneville and just pay our tier 2 rate? You'll have to make that decision next year. You know, the end of next year, once we. But like I said, there's ways that, even though we say you're forced to buy the tier 2 product, there's ways to tweak it a little bit, so where you could still develop resources.
We're forced to look at.
Or forced to look at it, like you could have a new load come in here and say, we wanna do solar, well, you can. But you know, you just make sure you have the conversation with Bonneville, you know, bring us in right away, if you have a load that comes in, that's 5 megawatts.
Yeah.
And just start having a conversation with us, and how are you gonna serve that 5 megawatts, whether they build resources, you build resources, or just use our tier 2 product, but start having that conversation with us as soon as you get a new load coming in here.
Yeah, there's probably 99% chance we would just continue to buy all of our tier 2 from BPA. If the port and the city's doing their job, our high water mark should go over 5, and it's bringing in business. That'd be a good problem to have. And again, we'd work with the business to find a solution that works for everybody, so.
Tiffany, I agree with Bernard, cause I was there for the first tier 1, tier 2 negotiations, and it was like terrifying. And to move all of that into tier 1 is like astounding. And I wanna say, Bernard, there are people that are like the Google, I don't remember what county it is, but they are making small nuclear. Small modular reactors to source their energy. And so you said you didn't particularly see that coming on anytime soon, though, because Oregon's pretty against those.
What coming on?
That nuclear.
Yeah, SMRs,
Yeah.
It's not legal, we have it in our. I forget what year they voted as acting, because.
80s.
Yeah, 80s.
Yeah. It's not illegal. The way they structured it makes it almost impossible. You have to go through the entire permitting process, like the whole thing. And DEQ and the state says, yeah, you can build it, spend whatever $1 million it is, and then it goes to a vote of the entire state. Right. And they have to approve it. So, I mean, you could spend millions of dollars preparing to build your plant, and then a vote of the people could say, no, it's done.
It's done, yeah.
And nobody's gonna spend that time and money to do it. So it's essentially a moratorium, but technically it's not. There is a House bill that was presented last year, we're gonna represent it this year. It's being led by the folks in Umatilla County to build SMRs in Oregon to get rid of that restriction. There seems to be some interest in it. It sounds like the debacle with the transportation bill fudged up a lot of stuff, including this one. So they're gonna bring it back.
Yeah, I see it happening.
I think it's eventually gonna happen because it has to. I mean, like I said, in my report, it's pretty, that conference was pretty gloom and doom, like. We're all expecting rolling blackouts at some point in Oregon, as unthinkable as it was 5 years ago, it's going to happen.
And they said that would be for 5, I read somewhere that that's. After 5 years, will we hit.
Yeah, it's not like gonna happen tomorrow,
Yeah.
unless something changes sooner than later,
So.
we're gonna have problems.
I think there were like 3 different areas of choices to make, the A and B, which was. And then A, B, C, and D, and then option 1, 2, and 3, did you?
Yeah, some of them was. The options got into, let's see where to get that, got into if you had a. If you had a new load. That came in here, a new data farm or something that came in. How, and they want to bring their own resource in, so you're gonna, you state. You gotta make an option whether that resource would ever exceed the load. And exceed that, and then you could say, no, we're gonna always take a certain amount of federal power for this new load. So we're trying to plan our system, so if you have it's behind the meter resource, behind this resource, consumer owned resource, the consumer owns, your consumer owns this resource. We need to know if that resource is ever gonna exceed that load, and then we also need to know, is that resource, how much federal power do you want? You want federal power to serve the base of that, like you always want 2 megawatts of energy to serve this consumer load, or the flip of that, they wanna take. Sorry, the resource is they always wanna serve at least 3 megawatts of their resource serving that, and we take up the slot, the difference. So they either base load it with the federal power or base load it with their own resources. So that was one of the options on the consumer owned resources.
So that's not probably one that affects us.
Yeah, the big one is that for the A, C, D, or D, that option, which, yeah, I should have. I could send Jordan, and that would be something that I'll be working with. You guys on next, early summer next year, we'll start having those discussions.
But we have to make a decision on this contract before November, is that November or December?
December, yeah, but as Kevin mentioned, BPA is encouraging to get it done sooner than later.
With the Googles and everybody coming after, I mean, everybody can see our rates because it's public and we're about the cheapest rates in the nation, so.
Yeah. So in the past, when we had the tier 1, tier 2, it seemed, sometimes the tier 1 was less than the tier 2. No, the tier 2 was less than the tier 1, is there no possibility of that in the future?
That was like, I want to say good old days of huge coal plants in Wyoming and Utah. You just had more energy than you had load. I just don't see that ever being the case again, unless you have some new technology that comes out. Like it could get there again if you have some, and maybe in the life of this contract, we may see it, but like SMRs are $150 a megawatt hour. I mean, if an SMR got down to build it for $25 a megawatt hour, then tier 2 rates would be lower than our tier 1 rate, because we're fixed. We're not gonna be able to lower our costs. We want a lot to lower from what we have today, but if some new crazy technology comes out that will lowers the cost, then yes, but yeah, back in I was around Bonneville at that time too. And it's just, it was
weird.
It was weird, but there was just more energy on the market than there was load. And that was with data centers. I don't think that's ever been the case anymore with AI loads.
And then so Jordan, to me, some of the questions that I asked are pretty much like directed at you, and one of them. Oh, yeah, will our high water mark be affected by the different vision of the port not doing it, going less industrial and more tourism, it seems to me like?
No, I mean, we talked about this, Kevin, what year was the high water mark set? We're using data from 24, 25.
Let's see, for 26, right now we're into FY 26, so that was done last summer.
Yeah, but so for the new high water mark for FY 29, what year's being used? Or I mean, I guess what year are we using to set the base high water mark for the new contract?
We We use 23, but this is a little bit messy because let's go back to sorry, I want to touch on your question because it was a good one, or somebody asked this question. So we set for FY 26, we set that load forecast last summer. So you come to us and we set our rates, we set your loads flat, we build flat loads, because we need to make sure we're guaranteed a certain level of recovery for it, we keep our rates coming in flat, that 80%. We want to make sure that our 80% rates are pretty stable. That 20% flex is, so if the loads do not show up like we forecasted last summer, let's say, the port you said is not, I don't know if it's coming in low or high, but what you'll receive is credits. If your load comes down from what we planned, you'll get load shaping credits. If the load came in a little bit higher, you get load shaping charges. And those are based, they're not tier 1, but they're not tier 2 either, like right in between. It's like $50 a megawatt hour. So we give you a credit at $50 a megawatt hour if the loads come in less, if that port is not coming in like we thought it was last summer when we set that forecast, or if it's coming in higher, we charge a little bit more for that.
And I think to go to your question, the port, when they were looking at high energy users, that was never actually built into our forecast because none of it was certain. BPA asked for, I think, 75% certainty in those forecasts, and at that point it was like 10.
And
So-
it's not just that, but it's also Bear Mountain's are they back to drying what they were before here? Because they cut.
They won't be until they get some good winters, is what they said, because
Yeah,
they
I'd have to look
have a
into it,
demand
but-
for the pellets.
Because that changes, because they were a high power consumer.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And then my other question is about this Water Resource Agency program. Is there any decision that we have to make on that, or is that just we're sucked into that the diversity of resources program, the RAP?
Oh, the wrap,
Yeah.
yes, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, yes, there'll be wrap, and I'll work with Jordan. I just don't think it's really gonna impact people that want to develop their own resources. And so that's gonna be the wrap. It's gonna be for the bigger players that are building their own resources or going to the market to serve the resources themselves, if they want to go to the market to buy and serve their own tier 2. Go to what we call mid-C, but there's an open market where you can buy your own energy and serve your own tier 2 load. Those will be the wrap will impact them. So I really don't think you'll have any impacts there.
Thank you.
So anybody else have any questions?
I'd like to get all of council's questions out, because I want this in for a vote at the next meeting. I mean, not that we're gonna have a great debate with BPA, this is kind of what we're getting.
Yeah.
But I wanna make sure all of the questions are answered before Kevin leaves tonight.
It's basically how hard do you want your arm twisted behind you?
Yeah, and like I said, it is slightly a little bit horse before the court, we're trying to plan 23 years out, which nobody has any clue. The ABCD options. We'll just have to work with them to make a decision next year, which again will come in front of council, so.
Bernard, did you have a quick question?
I
before we
did,
go?
yes, if I could. So 2 things, sir. So we talked about, other forms of energy. And just to be clear, I think the most logical solution would be us to get our tier 1 and then become your standard tier 2. Anything that comes above 5, we default to your resources and you bill us accordingly. But I'm always fascinated by the energy market. So while I've got an expert here, I'd love to talk to you a little more. So, I'm studying forestry right now, and, we've got a huge problem with overfueled forest in Oregon and Washington. There's millions of acres that need to be thinned, and the truth is there's no lumber market for that. And some of those trees aren't really good for the lumber market. So I can't, we have a whole, center here on biomass. Do you know what biomass, what it's costing to use biomass as a form of energy? What is that charging per megawatt hour? Do you have any sense on that?
There's not a ton of it out there on the market. I mean, I just think it's expensive to get your fuel. That's the problem. You'll have it in sometimes these biomass that are hooked to a lumber facility and just eating their, cogen you'll see.
Right.
You see a lot of cogens that it naturally makes sense because they have the fuel right there, that's just a, off that cogen, but to go and try to produce and just try to make it economic to go, thin out the trees, because it is really expensive to get in there and thin those forests out, like to get your fuel would be really expensive to get that fuel and then ship it to your facility to turn it into energy.
Okay.
I just don't see, economically, I don't see that being the ticket that's gonna be long-term winner.
Okay, thank you. And then just if I could, because I'm curious. So am I hearing you right that if you're working for a federal agency, are you prohibited from using the word climate change or clean energy? Am I hearing that right? I've heard that kind of in the rumor mill.
I don't know, I wanna be careful.
Yeah.
Times right now, but yeah, I've been told that I need to be careful saying some stuff, like.
Yeah.
I haven't been directed, we're a little bit insulated because we are DOE, but Bonneville's a separate entity of DOE. So we're a little insulated, but there has been messaging that DOE employees have received, which I'm technically a DOE employee, that has said, climate change, green, renewables, you gotta stay away from using those terms in writing or, public speaking. Like I even had, this week was a new one to me, was I had to get permission to come out here and I had to let DOE know that I'm talking to, out there, potentially public could be hearing my conversation. So it's just different times a little bit.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Do you need a direction for this meeting?
As long as you are
You
good.
just make sure that you guys all have your questions answered, because we're gonna bring it back on November 10th. For an action item to get it signed.
But if we have questions, we can forward it.
Yes, send me questions. I mean, I don't see any major objections to bringing this for a vote in 2 weeks. Okay, perfect.
All right, I'll turn around those really quick too, Jordan.
Okay.
Send it to me.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for coming in and.
Thank you for the
Send
most
for
boring
everything.
reading in a whole wide world.
Yes, it is.
But this.
For Dave.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm impressed with your guys' questions, because there were, some good ones, but basically, yeah. Lock up that 5 and then come to me if you're gonna go up to 5. Let's talk about it. So there's a bunch of options, or go to NRU. I mean, they're excellent. So NRU has a bunch of ex-Bonneville employees that are really good Bonneville employees working with them, so.
So that just makes, so are we gonna go to NRU and ask them what's the best, or do you think you know?
I mean, option A is probably where we're gonna go, but I will check in with NRU, PPCR associations.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you so much, sir, for coming out.
Hey, and please come back to Cascade Locks.
I will come back.
We've got more than just ice cream. Our marine park
Ice
is stunning.
plus
There's
ice
so
cream.
many cool things here. So,
No, I'll be back.
all right, good to hear.
Would like to come back and see your service territory.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, there was a question about an additional substation.
Yeah, the substation, I did.
The additional substation will, not impact, it's the load that impacts it, so it's the load that impacts your cost. It will maybe on your transmission side, if there's additional meter needed, you'll have to pay a metering fee, but it'll be really small stuff. Like maybe, I mean, that's, you know.
Yeah, in terms of the big picture, very
Tiny, yeah.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank you, Kevin.
so moving on to our public hearings.
No public hearings tonight.
All right. Action items, adopt ordinance number 467 to amend Article 3 of the CDC.
Okay, does council want me to read this again? I guess I'll ask that. This is probably the 7th or 8th time I've read
Can
this.
you just read the changes?
Yes,
that we
I can do
made?
that. Yep. Let's see, I need to go
Substantial
to, oh yeah, a copy of the updated ordinance was provided to council and posted at City Hall 7 days prior to the meeting, satisfying requirements to read the ordinance by title only and mentioning the substantial changes unless the council member objects. Does any council member object to reading the ordinance by title only?
We don't have Keller in here, but
We do it for
I doubt he'll have a problem with it.
Okay, so I'm gonna read it by title only and then read the substantial changes. Ordinance number 467, an ordinance amending the Community Development Code, Article 3, Land Use Districts. Substantial changes from the last reading, moving downtown zone from residential designation to commercial designation, page 4. moving cottage cluster from permitted use to conditional use in downtown zone, page 19. Change one parking spot per 1,000 net square feet to 1,000, I think I got that backwards again, 1,000 gross feet to 1,000 net square feet, page 21. Adding the clarification that only commercial buildings must meet the weather protection standards, page 23. Clarification of design standard applicability to existing structures, page 21, 28 to 33. Removal of references to accessory structure standards, page 9, 11, 13, 15, 17, 28, 33, 38, 40, 41, and 42. Also in the packet are reports from U of O staff regarding those accessory structure removals, and then a memorandum from the fire department regarding the building height and apparatus ability. And those are at the back of the packet.
Okay. And do we already have a motion since we?
No, we need a
Yes, we
motion.
Move to adopt ordinance 467, amending article 3 of the Cascade Locks Community Development Code. Second.
And so we have a motion on the floor by Happy and second by Keller for ordinance 467. Any discussion?
I think we've discussed it today.
All right, no discussion. Wow, I feel like I need to have party poppers. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No opposed, so ordinance 467 passes unanimously, no nays.
It's only together 10 months.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a long drawn out process.
Yeah. All right, definition of consensus and council procedures.
Okay, council continues to have confusion, discussions, and debates on the definition and best use of consensus during the council meeting. Council currently defines consensus as long as no one opposes. For a variety of options, below are 3 definitions of consensus. Merriam-Webster's dictionary defines it as general agreement, unanimity, and the judgment arrived by most of those concerned, group solidarity in sentiment and belief. Cambridge Dictionary, a generally accepted opinion or decision among a group of people, a generally accepted opinion, wide arrangement. The Michigan State University defines it as consensus does not mean that everyone agrees at the same level. The focus of consensus to achieve a mutually acceptable level of agreement necessary to move forward. However, after discussion with staff and the issues council continues to have around consensus, staff would like to make the suggestion to remove consensus from council procedures and replace it with majority directive or an unofficial or an official vote. A majority directive is established when less than a majority of council members oppose a proposed idea or directive. In other words, if a majority does not object, the directive moves forward. This method is intended for routine matters that do not directly change policy or procedure or authorized expenses. And then I list all the different possible examples of where consensus is listed in council procedures. Would council like me to read those examples aloud? I agree. So council's options for tonight are select a definition and use of consensus and a majority directive. And then I wasn't really quite sure how to motion this. This really would, because it needs to, an updated council procedures needs to come in front of council for an approval before anything's really official. So I guess kind of come to an agreement on how we want to move forward, and then an official vote to update. Council procedure will become the next meeting. Yeah, it's
Clarity, is this an action item then?
It is
Or-
an action item.
yes. I would like a vote from council on how you all would like to move forward on this subject.
So can we have a discussion without having a motion?
I can make a motion.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
well, I can, because I can make a motion. I make a motion that it just be a vote, because. I make a
Yeah.
motion that it just be a
Okay.
vote. And I'd like to explain why.
We will as soon as we get a
A
second.
second, yeah.
I'll second that.
Second it, all right. So we have a motion on the floor from Pruitt and second by Bump. And you can go ahead and say why.
And my reason why is because our charter states, page 3, section 19. Except as this charter provides otherwise, express concurrence of a majority, 4 members of the council is necessary to decide affirmatively any question before the council. Any question. That's what our charter says. We need to just stick to our charter. And to me, majority directive is just another fancy way of saying consensus. And I want to say for the record, when we had this discussion before, I was for the 4-3. I didn't want to go unless one adamantly opposes, but that's the direction that the council went, and they regretted it by the next meeting. And it just needs to be a simple vote, as far as I'm concerned, and line up with our charter.
All right, Courtney.
I might be showing my naivety, my hopefulness. So at the LOC meeting, one of the speakers had actually brought up, consensus, which I thought was kismet. And the idea that the focus of consensus, so Michigan State University, the focus of consensus is to achieve a mutually acceptable level of agreement. I like that idea because we all come to the table representing various facets of our community. And we come together and we form plans and ideas and directions that we feel best represents all of our community, as opposed to feeling like, there's people that want things this way and they've got all of these people on council and that's why things are going that way, or, we got these people on council and that's why these things are going that way. It removes some of the power of, I don't even know the right word for it, but
One person.
well, one person, but also, the majority on council, if you've got a certain representation that is heavy, now some people feel like they don't get represented, like their voice at the table wasn't represented, and because it was outweighed by the opposing side, in that scenario. Am I making sense? No. I'm sorry. I feel like everybody gets to have a voice and then we meet in the middle, as opposed to having 2 contentious sides and one side wins. The consensus means that we find something that's mutually agreed upon. Nobody walks away feeling like they won or they lost. We all feel like we came together and accomplished something.
Bernard? I would just want to
Thank you.
remind council too, it is going on 8:40. And we still have quite a ways to go, so we can ask our questions and maybe not elaborate so much, but go ahead, Bernard.
Thank you, Mayor. So if I could ask a quick question of Councilmember Kleeman. So what do you propose, or are you proposing we stay with our current definition of consensus?
Yeah.
No, I like so right now the motion on the table is to take out consensus entirely and replace it with vote. I'm saying that I like Michigan State University's definition of consensus, and if we go by that basis, I would like to keep consensus in council procedures.
So can you clarify how they do it in Michigan State?
Well, just for my understanding of this definition that's in our packet. Achieve a mutually acceptable level of agreement. It means that it probably creates more longer discussions, but we come to an agreement. We find some common ground. We find something that we can all agree on. And so it's not quite one person.
Okay.
It's that we all have to agree on something.
I understand. Okay. And for what it's worth, I did understand what you're trying to, kind of the theory you're trying to support by that proposal. But I have to say that I agree with Councilmember Pruitt. I prefer either we do it by vote my second preference would be majority directive. My third preference, leave it the same, or some version of what was just presented. But yes, I definitely would like a majority vote to solve these issues. That's the nature of policy making, is that you're going to have disagreements. And I don't want the consensus to be so hamstrung that nothing can move forward because you have, one person being the stick in the wheel. And I don't know, I'm more action oriented. I want us to be able to make decisions and move issues forward, assuming you got 4 votes. So that's where I'm at. Thank you.
If my memory serves me right, the concern at the time was council having a vote outside of action items. Or maybe my memory
No,
was wrong.
it's 2 different issues. Well, but it is part of that.
What? Okay,
Hold on. Consensus in whenever there are council comments and stuff, and you say, do I have a consensus of the council? That's where it shouldn't be happening, because then it's not as an action item. However, go ahead.
okay, but, okay. I don't mind taking a vote there, as long as we're just taking a vote on whatever's being proposed during council comments and not having any discussion. We say the discussion for the next, we get it on the next agenda, and then the citizens get to see that that's gonna be on the agenda, and they can come in and give their yays or their nays or whatever for it, but we don't have any discussion. We don't have any discussion, we just say, we need to know whether this is something to move forward, to invest staff's time on it.
Right.
And invest council's time on it, and if there aren't 4 people that want to move forward with whatever ideas put forward during a council comment, then it just dies, we don't have the discussion.
If we decide to go that way where we take 4 to 3,
Yeah.
for. If we go by vote, if
Yeah.
we don't change consensus.
Right. And I think Pete understands.
Go ahead, Pete.
And I just have seen the way that, we're talking about consensus as a method, used for determining routine matters that do not directly change policy, procedure, or authorize expenses. So we're trying to, really, I think where this has come up most, I guess, recently has been about trying to get consensus on adding items to the agenda. And I feel like we're making it more complicated than it really needs to be. I really think that it's, it really should be a general agreement. I don't like the idea that one person could just have veto power and say, and so I guess I'm more in favor of just saying, leave it as consensus. And it's a general agreement. The way that it's been used when we've done budget committee, I mean, you kind of read the room and not everybody's agreement, but you kind of get the feel of which way the gravity is pulling things, and then we're moving on. It's to keep things moving forward, I guess, is to quickly get read the room and see where people sit.
But that requires a majority to be able to move forward. I mean,
Well, when you're running the budget committee, I mean, you do a good job of, I think, judging that and reading that. How do you do that without taking a vote?
We do take votes,
No, I'm talking about times when we're just trying to get an idea of, consensus, what, you're trying to get agreement from everybody on the budget committee, we got 14 of us. We're not taking a vote on every single one of these
No.
issues, you just say, does everybody kind of, what's consensus of, the budget committee on this? And then everybody kind of speaks up, thumbs up or thumbs down, and then we move forward, it's not an official vote.
So thumbs up, thumbs down, I mean, it's just a vote, I mean, it's pretty much the same thing, I mean, it's just a vote, it's just saying, yeah, this is a worthy thing that we need to work, we feel we could work on, and it's worth investing.
So the issue I have with 4 though is what if we only have, what if we have 2 counselors absent? What if we have, I think it's a majority of the people that are here.
No, because we can't have a meeting unless we have a majority.
No,
I mean, well,
we
fine,
can have-
unless we have 4, and I would suggest that we don't make such decisions without, with just 4 people showing up to a meeting and leave it for the full council, or as many of the full council as we can get, I mean. It's not very often that we have just 4 people.
I believe the charter describes, for a vote to pass in this council, there has to be, it's the
Yes.
whole council, so there would have to be 4.
Yeah.
So if there were only 4 here,
You'd have to
all
have a vote.
4 of them.
But what I'm saying is, like, what I'm talking about for the purposes of consensus, I wouldn't wanna have to, you know, get everybody to agree if you only have 4 people here for the meeting. I think if you had, you know, 4 people here and 3 of them are saying, yeah, that's good, then that should be consensus of council.
I absolutely agree,
I don't wanna kick that to the next meeting.
you have, I mean, I feel like you're wanting to call it a vote. Creates a certain standard, a certain definition. This is a consensus where up until today, it has been one person can veto it.
Right.
In which we all feel like, there's several of us that feel like there's something inherently misaligned in that, and so, but I think with consensus, or with this idea of consensus, it, you know, looking at the difference between vote and majority directive, if we have a majority directive, it's the majority of what is here. If somebody doesn't wanna, if somebody misses a meeting, we don't stop forward movement of everything, we continue to go, and that's the whole point of consensus, is to keep it moving. And so by saying that you have to have 4 people all agree on a consensus, because that is the majority, that is your quorum, I think that just. I mean, in the spirit of trying to keep things moving, that would just hold us up.
Bernard?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So I guess, well, now I'm a little confused on where you're at, Councilmember Kyleman. So are you saying the Michigan solution, it uses the majority directive as its tool? Is that what you understand? What you're
No, what I've realized that I'm the minority in liking the Michigan State University definition. It seems like the conversation has gone off of that. So I'm trying to keep up with everybody else.
Okay, got it.
Come to just
All right.
an understanding of something that we all like.
Okay, thank you. All right, well, good enough. Like I said, I feel like the majority directive is a fine solution to this. The other thing I'll add is I see us using consensus in basically 2 scenarios. One, is there something that 4 of us want to put on the agenda so we can get further discussion and review and conversation? And then 2, directing the city administrator to do something. Every now and then, it's like, boy, I sure would like if the city administrator would look into something, but I'm only one person. By our charter, 1 council member is not bossing around the city administrator. It takes 4 of us, okay? So that's, I think in the past, that's been consistent. I don't like that being all 6 have to agree. If 4 want to agree on having the city administrator take on something or look into something, that's another example that I would like to see this be used. So anyway, I just want to put that in there. Those are the two cases I'd like to see that this sets up, and then we have what to me would be a better definition to determine that.
Thanks, Tiffany. First.
Okay, so I just want to read again what the charter says, except as this charter provides otherwise, express concurrence of a majority 4 members of the council is necessary to decide affirmatively any question before the council.
I think that when you read that, what I hear, I'm sorry to interrupt, what I hear though is, when we have to make can you say that one more time?
Except as this charter provides otherwise, express concurrence of a majority 4 members of the council is necessary to decide affirmatively any question before the council.
So if you have 4 council people here, you gotta have all 4 of them.
To make any question before the council, but I think any question before the council, it's not about providing general direction or adding to the agenda. That's just about a question before the council would be something that would be changing policy, procedure, authorized expenses.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's not really a question before the council, it's just providing some direction.
Okay.
I've got a little bit of clarity on this. Let's apply it to where consensus is used. One instance of where consensus is used, page 11. A consensus of council may also request the city attorney's presence at a council meeting. If there are only 4 of us and we have our quorum, and there's something pressing coming up that 3 out of the 4 of us finds emergent, are we going to say that all 4 people have to come to a consensus in an instance, you know, when it's something potentially impactful, you know. Obviously, we're not making policy or procedure decisions, but in cases like this, I feel like it would be, pertinent to be able to say 3 of those 4 people can come to a consensus. Majority present. Which brings me back to the whole majority directive as opposed to calling it a vote.
Go ahead, Tiffany.
Okay, but we're talking about something that happens so rarely. We rarely have just 4 people at a council meeting, so I don't know why we're making that the high water mark. When it's really the low water mark. We generally have more than 4 people at a council meeting, so I don't know, I don't understand why we're using that as our high water mark. I just, I think we should just stick with what the charter says. Make it a vote.
Mayor?
Yeah, but
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think that the attorney could weigh in on this, but I believe Councilmember Happy is right. When the charter is saying question, these are official actions. That's what that's referring to, that you need 4 folks to agree on.
Right.
Direction on an agenda or direction to staff, I don't believe that's considered a question before council. But that's what I think the attorney could clarify that.
just to clarify with everybody kind of how this is, or this is Courtney wanted clarification of consensus, so I went through the procedures myself as well. And seeing all the different places in our council procedures, it mentions consensus. So either we need to go along with the definition that we have for consensus, or figure out a different definition, or change the word. But it talks about it in our council procedures several times. You know, so, go ahead.
I just was hoping to ask, you said you were opposed to changing the definition of what it is now. What were you advocating for at the time? 'Cause I'm just kind of, I wanna
I
know.
wanted just the 4 to 3, what it's always been, it's 4 to 3, if 4 people wanted to, more the majority, the simple majority.
So really, the
go for it.
majority directive would be kind of what you were advocating for before, the majority of the people that are present, is that right?
No, the majority of the council.
But what if they don't have 7 people here? I mean, I understand it's not common, but I'm just saying if you only have 6 people or 5 people, I think that it changes
But
the,
it states right here in your charter, concurrence of a majority, 4 members.
we're making a decision, like Bernard said,
Any question before the
right,
council.
those are formal questions, those are like
Any
procedural.
question.
No, I know, but
Yeah, I
it's,
don't think so.
You're trying to redefine what any question is. It's any question. Any question that comes before the council requires a vote.
I think you're being too literal.
Okay, hold on, guys. Hold on. Eric, you have a chance.
Okay, in the council procedures, or sorry, in the Robert's Rule of Order, I'm asking for a vote. I don't know what the official term is, but it's
Yeah,
there.
that's right here.
I'm asking for a
For the
vote.
question. So you're just calling for the question.
Yeah, like, let's vote.
The question. That's what
Yeah.
you
Thank
said.
you.
Yes.
So what's the motion on the table again, if we could?
Just that it's a simple vote.
Oh,
It's that
right,
it's-
okay.
So the motion on the table is that it's a simple vote, that we're changing all this.
And take.
Replace consensus with vote anywhere in the council procedures.
Yes,
Okay, so and that was,
made
made,
by me.
motion by Pruitt, second by Bump. All in favor, say aye.
And it's-
Aye.
Oh, aye.
So Bernard said aye, you said aye, and Bump said aye.
And
Opposed?
Are you voting?
No,
What?
I voted nay.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm voting, but I'm voting nay. I'm trying to like run the meeting and get your side talk over here, so please wait till, please wait till you call on.
May I?
Yes, please.
Ask who voted no again?
I voted no, Happy voted no, Keller voted no, and Courtney voted no.
Okay.
Bernard, Bump, and Keller voted
No.
yes, right?
Pruitt.
Pruitt.
Pruitt. Sorry. Got it?
Thank you.
So, yeah.
Okay, can we make another motion?
If you raise your hand,
Yeah.
Can I make a motion?
So that one failed, okay?
Okay, so I move we adopt. We redefine consensus as majority directive and direct staff to update the council procedures and bring them back for a vote of approval at the next council meeting.
Second.
Discussion?
Discussion, please.
Okay, any discussion? Go ahead, Courtney.
Are we going to define majority directive? Are we gonna define majority? Are we going to differentiate between majority present versus majority of council?
I like the way they wrote it in here, I mean, just it's the majority of the people present.
Doesn't seem.
It
So it
doesn't
says
say
that, so long as the majority of, this-
it doesn't.
Yeah, doesn't say that.
I think that's a fine thing to clarify. I would defer
Yeah.
to the city attorney or any other, rules expert on how that should be defined. And if they say majority president or four, I'm okay with either one of those.
sorry, majority directive is established when less than majority of council members opposes a proposed idea or directive. So if we had 6 people present and you had 2 people oppose it and 3 people were for it, it would move forward.
Okay, very easy then. That does cover that. So that definition, that's how we define majority directive. Thank you.
Okay. Bob,
I'm a little confused and I'm sorry. Majority directive versus majority vote. What is the difference?
Because
I don't
what
understand.
is missing from the meeting is apparently the issue, in case there's only 6 or 5 or 4 people in the meeting, they want that to be the majority, even though it goes against the charter, they want that to be the majority, and whoever of those 4, 5, or 6 people that are at the meeting, that majority.
And
go ahead, Courtney.
To make it more clear, the less than a majority of council members oppose a proposed idea, so that means the majority of council is for. So when less than that oppose something, so regardless of how many people are present, if less than majority oppose something, then it moves forward. So it could be 3, 2, or 1, if any of those numbers.
All right, who else had their hand up so we can move on? All discussions done?
so just to clarify, because I misread that, I was understanding as the less than majority of those that are present, but the way you're reading it, the way it says it exactly here is less than majority of council, so that would be
See,
3 or less.
it doesn't really clarify. But presumably, even if you have 4 people here and only 1 person opposes, it moves forward. Yeah.
So one person can dictate what goes on.
No, opposite, that one person
Oh, the one
doesn't get
opposed,
to dictate.
Okay,
So.
any other questions?
Mary Ann doesn't speak up very often, so when I hear you saying something, I like to just.
Well, it just makes, I'm sorry, it just makes no sense. Majority directive versus majority vote.
And the whole idea of doing this is to make it where it's very clear to this council and future council. That we wanted it to be in the procedures, and that way this question quits coming up.
So then the procedures will offset the charter.
So,
It already does.
okay, Kelly.
Okay, please, there are definitions in various industries for different terms. In legal land, a question is different than in our vernacular in which we just speak. There are definitions. Okay, so in legal land, a question is an official doohickey, like a big deal thing. And I don't feel comfortable putting vote in reports, in comments, like that, the votes are for action items. That's where votes are. A majority directive is just a lesser definition of a vote. That's all this is, because a vote has a very specific legal term in this area. Not in terms of like hanging out with our friends
like, we have to understand that these terms have meanings for a specific use within the law.
Mayor, if I could, real quick,
Real
I
quick.
would be happy to amend my motion to say some of the effect, what I said on majority directive, assuming the attorney concludes that this does not violate our charter. I don't want to violate the charter either, but I think he's going to conclude using majority directive as a way of addressing, these types of consensus issues does not violate our charter. So I'm happy to make that amendment if that would shore up support from folks like Councilmember Bump.
Courtney.
I'm with Keller, vote has a certain connotation behind it, and to add it in seems like a much bigger deal than just taking a vote right now. And to address, going against what council procedure says, by having consensus, we're already going against council procedure. This is how it's been established, and so I don't think clarifying what is established is a bad thing.
So let's continue going ahead with going against the charter. That's what you just said. That's what I'm hearing. You're saying we're establishing how to continue to go against what the charter says by defining it in a council.
This has been grandfathered in as, I'm assuming the consensus has some
One at
sort
a
of
time,
alternative.
it's hard to take minutes when there's two of you talking. And Kathy would like to say something.
Just before we get too far,
Mhm.
Councilmember Seeger amended his motion. I just need to know if, the seconder approves the amendment.
I approve that.
Thank you.
Presumably, the word consensus is in here already because of some sort of previous legal decision that was made where it doesn't go against our charter. I mean, it didn't come up in the charter review committee, it didn't come up in previous charter review committees. The fact that every little tiny thing isn't a vote hasn't ever came up because consensus is a generally understood idea and concept that is used in government.
Okay, Tiffany, and then Pete.
Nothing supersedes your charter.
All right.
And I agree, and I think that I like Bernard's amendment to clarify that, and I think that, there's a time when we need to take a vote, and that's when we take a vote. And then there's times we need to make a decision, but we don't need to take a vote, and that's when we get consensus. So that's why we're trying to redefine that to make it more clear what consensus is.
So,
So to be clear, the vote your majority directive means depending on how many people are out council, the majority of those present determine the direction.
Negative, no, that was, I got clear, Ms. Kyleman, he corrected me on that and said, no, what it says in here is that so long as what's it say? He said it so clear.
Less than a majority of council members oppose a proposed idea or directive.
Okay. So then I need definition on what majority is. Is it a majority of who are at that meeting at that particular time when that decision, when you're deciding, or is it a majority of the 7 council? What does that mean?
And what if there's only 6 people on council because we have an open vacancy?
And that's what I'm saying, it still
It's
is.
the majority of who's at that meeting at the time.
We would
That's
need
my
clear-
interpretation. Majority present.
I mean, that's how, if I was running the meeting, that's how I would do it. I'd take the reading of the room and be like, okay, I feel like majority of people are kind of pulling this way. Let's move on, let's make a decision.
But that's not, I mean, you have to have, when you, like in budget, you have to make a decision on the majority of the budget committee numbers, how many we have.
okay, so we have a motion on the floor. Will you restate your motion?
Yes. I move that we redefine consensus as a majority directive and direct staff to update council procedures and bring them back for a vote of approval at the next council meeting, so long as majority directive does not violate the city's charter as determined by the city attorney.
And the way that you interpreted majority directive was the majority of council that are present, not the majority of council that
Yes,
are on.
that is correct.
Thank you, I'll second that.
All right. So we got a motion and we got a second, and we've already done our discussion, so all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. So, Mary Ann, did you vote?
No, I didn't. Did I abstain? Yeah.
You can abstain.
Okay. So Pruitt voted no, Bob abstained, and everyone else was ayes, correct? So Seeger, Courtney.
Yes, ma'am.
Happy and Brett said. All right, thank you, guys. And you got all that right, Jordan?
Yep. I'll watch the video and make sure I got it right and then talk to Ruth.
All right, reports and presentation, we got committee reports, tourism.
Good evening again. Just based on a comment that was made during the work session, I would like to clarify that this is a contractor report, not a committee report, because that seems to be a point of clarity that you need. In our contract, there is a line that says we report quarterly on our activities, and that's what this is. This is not a committee report. The committee did see this at their meeting last week, but this is not a committee report. To be completely clear. All right. So for this summer quarter here, we had a pretty good summer. We had 3,244 people come through the doors of the museum between March 1st and September 30th. And as of September 30th, we were continuing to see strong visitation on sunny days through October. Visitor inquiries are up 45% from 2024, and we still attribute that growth to year-over-year awareness. Local frontline staff training, so like when people go and ask a question at the grocery store, they know that they can send them to the museum for info. Improve signage, creating and optimizing that separate visit Cascade box listing on Google Maps and other databases. Looking at the types of questions that people ask when they come to a visitor center, we see that a little more than a third of the questions are people looking for resources. So these are tangible things that people are looking for, whether that is a parking permit or a map or a bus schedule or a brochure. The majority of those requests are for Multnomah Falls parking permits. The second largest chunk of questions is recommendations. So these are visitors who are seeking local knowledge to support their experience. And that is one of these first two things are like the primary support for a visitor center and why you want to keep a visitor center, because those are two major content things that are driving people who want to stick around in your community and spend money. The next chunk is content. So these are the history, arts, and culture questions that we get that overlap with tourism because tourists have history, arts, and culture questions. So these are examples. It's like, where do I go to see the locks is a really big one. Where are the locks? Why are they not here anymore? Why is it called the Bridge of the Gods? Am I on the Oregon Trail right now? What's that body of water right there? It runs the gamut of what people are looking for, but there's definitely content is a big chunk of what we talk about. And then the last little bit, this one has shrunk the most since we started tracking visitor questions, and these are the amenities questions. So these are the people who are looking for where is the bathroom? How do I pay for parking? All of those things. These are questions that could be solved by better signage. So this is information to take into your wayfinding part of your downtown revitalization plan. And also things that we refer out to the port and say, hey, you could fix your signs about this thing and it would save a lot of people some confusion. When I first started tracking questions, amenities questions made up 33% of what people were asking. So signage is improving and people are getting better about knowing where those amenities are. But that's still, 14% of questions that could be answered by a sign, so. Looking throughout the season, Cascade Blocks had a fun summer. PCT days, we provided a significant support for the tourism committee's presence, including staffing the booth, designing the swag, processing the orders through the city when the committee was unable to make a quorum. And then large events brought in lots of overnight stays to Cascade Blacks. The Bridge of the Gods run sold out this year, the Cross Channel Swim sold out, and the Columbia Gorge Racing Association brought us several regattas. We had a great wedding season as well. April through October is now considered to be the wedding season. It's been expanding into the rainier months as people have been getting a little bit more competitive about their venues. Cascade Blacks venues have hosted 86 weddings with more than 100 attendees this season, and many of those are destination weddings where everyone is flying in from somewhere to stay in Cascade Blacks to go to their friend's wedding. And they've reportedly, I didn't get numbers for this, but twice that was the quote for smaller events. Looking at the fall events that we have coming up, and we had one this past weekend, Cyclocross Crusade was back out here, doing their mountain biking race. And then coming up November 8th, we have a new race. So this Daybreak Racing is that company that does the waterfall 100K in the spring that catches the whole community by surprise when they're like, why are there so many people here? It's April. They're bringing us another race on November 8th. We've sent out notices to the restaurants to be prepared for staffing on that day. Just because, you know, when you're waiting 5 hours for somebody to run across the finish line, you're gonna eat and drink while you're here, right? Looking at local amenities, the Northwest Trail Alliance is building that skills development area at the Easy Climb. That project is one that we helped work on the grant for Recreation Ready that wasn't selected, but the project is moving forward anyway, which is awesome. CritFic received a Travel Oregon grant for a feasibility study to support infrastructure for indigenous salmon sales in Cascade Blocks. The Oregon Wildlife Foundation, who are the operators of the Bonneville Fish Hatchery, also received a Travel Oregon grant for updating that interpretive information. Thunder Island Brewing brought in more electric vehicle charging stations. And then museum staff spent some time and trying to recruit new indoor facilities for winter use. And then looking at 2026 resource development, we did a lot of content verification on the Visit Cascade Blocks map, the Travel Oregon Visitor Guide, and the Visit Hood River Visitor Guide. All three of those are resources that are pretty widely distributed and also had not been verified in several years. So there was old information that had been out there in circulation that's now been up to date. Conferences and training. I got to attend Travel Ability last week, or 2 weeks ago, which is a national conference that happened to be in Sun River this year. I got the registration and stipend for the hotel stay via the regional destination marketing organization, Experience Mount Hood in the Gorge, which was a $2,500 value, because this is a very expensive conference. And that was in exchange for representing the gorge at a Taste of Oregon reception. The most exciting takeaways from that summit were a lot of coaching about helping hotels and attractions see accessibility providers as allies, not the ADA police, and working on making spaces accessible and how it improves the visitor experience for everyone. So like when you install an elevator, people in wheelchairs can use it, but so can somebody using a hand truck to move boxes. So can somebody with a stroller, like more than just disabled people use accessibility resources. We talked a lot about creating welcoming environments for travelers with sensory processing needs, which included but not limited to autistic and ADHD visitors and those who have PTSD and traumatic brain injuries. We got to hear some updates from other destinations about how investing in disability accommodations is actually winning them large events. So Miami, the city of Miami, put a lot of funding into making sure that all of their sporting arenas are super duper accessible. And that's won them the World Cup, which hasn't been hosted in the US for a while. And the other outcome from that is that when you buy amenities for visitors, so for example, things like Moby mats, which are these mobile wheelchair access things that you can put on beaches or on other uneven surfaces, those end up getting used 10 times more frequently by residents than they do by visitors. So those investments, even if you are buying it for tourism, are helping your locals too. There was also just some really good demonstrations of how to seamlessly provide visual descriptions and presentations, and just like looking at that type of accessibility. Those demonstrations were just really cool to see people like build that into how they present, just like describing, you know, what they look like for low vision visitors and watching, how people make that like not awkward and weird. And it was a good conference. As far as regional and statewide initiatives go, the Wheel of the World Destination Verified. So Travel Oregon's fall initiative this year centers on accessibility. We are now the first state to be accessibility verified by Wheel of the World, which is an international travel site supporting tourists with disabilities. I supported Cascade Locks businesses in getting verified under the West Gorge, or the West Columbia Gorge destination page. So we split our verification with Troutdale. So in the website, what they've built out is an experience that includes the entire Western Gorge. So you are getting information about riding the Sternwheeler, going to Brigham Fish Market, going to Multnomah Falls, and also going to a couple places in Troutdale. So making sure that, and all of our businesses that were evaluated under that scored at least a 4 out of 5. So we're doing better at accessibility in Cascade Locks. The latest itinerary for the accessible road trip around the Mount Hood and Columbia River Gorge uses the Sternwheeler and the Bonneville Fish Hatchery as the featured attractions for that road trip. And our regional marketing highlight, so all the big push for this with video content and with paid advertisement placements all over the world was last week, October 20th. I did not update that after the tourism meeting. So a lot of marketing went out about us as an accessible destination because of that. And it's something Travel Oregon paid for that we didn't have to pay for. We just put the time into it. Pulled the lodging reports. So looking at year to date, the Mount Hood and Columbia River Gorge region is actually outperforming statewide and national trends and showing minor year-over-year growth. So when we provided that forecast in budget season, we're keeping pace with what we had suggested, that you're just enough growth to keep pace with inflation. We're nailing it. Hood River County is leading the region in all of the lodging reporting categories as well. And then looking at our transient lodging tax receipts just for the city of Cascade Locks, this is the total. And I believe that we talked a little bit in the work session about wanting to see the difference between pandemic rebounds, and we have rebounded from that and surpassed where we were prior to 2020. And then I already spoke to this as part of the work session, but we did spend quite a bit of time putting in the research that goes into preparing for strategic planning as a destination. So we spent some time researching other destinations and comparing sample cities in Oregon and how they are managed to make the recommendations that we made earlier, including bringing you the case study for Explore Troutdale. And since we already reviewed this as part of the work session, I'm going to kind of gloss over instead of reading it out. You don't want to do it again? Okay. Other industry reminders. So coming up, one of the benefits that is offered in exchange for that 1.5 statewide lodging tax is a free basic listing in the printed and digital visitor guides for Travel Oregon. Any of our lodging properties that pay that tax are eligible for that free listing. So when you're talking to your friends who own hotels, make sure you remind them that they need to log into Orla and double check their information by November 21st to qualify. Last year, by reminding our lodging properties, we increased by several listings. So it makes a difference to make sure we're reminding people that they need to log into this database that they think about once a year. This is another benefit that you could use if you have a small business, local, if you have, it's a software platform where if you have a business that's tourism facing, you can use this to update Google Maps, Apple Maps, and 60 other directories all at the same time instead of logging into each one. And this is free for our tourism facing businesses to use, and it's amazing. It's so much easier to keep up with that kind of stuff instead of going onto Facebook and onto Apple and onto all of those little flip places to update your hours when you're gonna have a closure. You just do it once. So I would continue to encourage businesses to sign up for that. And I don't have to tell the city council about the road work and ODOT. They're all already pretty familiar with those projects that are going on. But that is affecting the visitor experience in Cascade Blocks because especially with the closure for Multnomah Falls on the historic highway being on our side this year. And then recommendations, as we reflect on the last 2 years, the museum's most significant contribution to Cascade Blocks tourism is bringing our destination into alignment with these statewide and regional messaging projects. Through visibility in the tourism industry professional sphere, we developed the relationships to support this work. And also we have improved representation of Cascade Blocks in those larger marketing programs, joint projects and resources and PR coverage than we could have ever had the capacity to engage with on our own. Having that responsive relationship with these entities has helped us proactively participate in tourism as a statewide industry. And that's really hard for me to come in here and translate, and I am doing my best. But basically, like the fact that we're working with other organizations means that we're benefiting from their marketing campaigns in a way that like we don't have the capacity to manage like an AI-driven national digital campaign. Like that's just not what our tourism has been built out to support at this point. But we benefit from it when Visit Hood River does one, and when the Experience Columbia River Gorge does one, when Travel Oregon does one, and we participate, we get the benefits from that without having to do it ourselves. And I think the second most significant accomplishment is the proof of concept. There is a full-time tourism jobs worth of work to do in Cascade Blocks. This is a network and relationship heavy industry, and you need at least one person working on it full-time for the health and continued relevance of Cascade Blocks as a destination. I stand by my recommendation from earlier that I think that you would really benefit from hiring an employee to do this, rather than going back out for RFP. And I am open for questions if we didn't get enough earlier.
Tiffany, on page 3, you have included the Bonneville data. I know that it's kind of a weird thing. They are considered Cascade Blocks in our mailing zone, but not our county, mailing in our phone, but not our county. So I mean, are they part of Cascade Blocks?
They are not within the city limits, but they also don't have lodging properties that would be paying UTLT anyway, but they are a huge attraction for us, right? So as far as people coming specifically to see a lock, that's where we have to send them because that's where the locks are, right? If people love Herman the sturgeon, they love the fish hatchery. It's a really big attraction that we benefit from working with. The lift on that and the partnership on that was very minor. It was a letter of support for the grant.
And then my other question was, on page 4, you mentioned the West Columbia Gorge. Now, that used to be, we used to belong to that chamber. Do we, because we had a meeting recently where they came to town and the mayor and I went to, and they said we were no longer part of that. Are we part of that chamber?
I don't believe that you have been a part of that chamber for a couple of years.
Yeah, the city is not. We were when I got here. I didn't see the value in continuing that relationship. Up until that meeting last month or earlier this month, whenever it was, they did zero outreach with us, nothing that I could see.
You have to keep in mind that chamber, so when the city of Troutdale changed that TLT allocation over to being an employee position instead of going to the chamber, that was a huge shakeup for their organization, and they took several years to recover from that financially. So they are just now to a point where they can do that outreach. Hypothetically, I don't know them very well, but like knowing that about their organization makes me think that would be huge.
Okay, so, but we see no benefit in being part of that. Is that?
So Cascade Blocks is covered by 3 different chambers of commerce, right? And I feel like this comes up every time we do any kind of business meeting, whether it's, is Skamania Chamber serving us, is Visit Hood River serving us, is West Columbia Gorge serving us? And the answer is all 3 kind of. And that's kind of the challenge with chambers in Cascade Blocks specifically, is that like, which one do you pay the $300 to be a member if you have a business? Do you do all 3? That's a lot, like, okay, and I can't fix that, but
Yeah,
You're good. All right, Bernard.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So one, now I'm seeing the revenues, Mr. Bennett, but I didn't look there. You know, if that's what you were referring to, I apologize. I looked at the email you sent and it didn't show it there, but obviously we've got the good report here, so thank you. And that's what I expected. So it's amazing how our TRT revenues have bounced back since the pandemic. And again, I applaud the tourism committee, Ms. Crane, all the work everyone's doing. I mean, our restaurants are doing a great job. They're doing, you know, music in the evenings, and all these different events and efforts are bringing more folks to town, and we're all benefiting. So I just applaud everyone on their work. With regards to the West Columbia Chamber of Commerce and the other ones, look, is that how much it costs, Jordan? $300 to be a member?
I don't remember off the top of my head. I would say on average 150, give or take.
Yeah, to me, that's a small price to pay to to be in their brochures and have them as an advocate for us. So I would be supportive of that expenditure going forward, as well as Skamania and and Visit Hood River. Thank you.
Courtney.
Yes, I got a couple questions. What's the difference? So this little graph here says CLT receipts. Is that the same as CLT revenue?
So this is data that's been pulled off of Travel Oregon's lodging reports. I don't have access to your financial system to see what has gone through that. This is a publicly available report that I have pulled. They should match, but
Except for we don't know what we've spent on tourism.
What?
no, receipts is like
Receipts is
gross money.
What you get from the.
Right,
But
yeah.
you've gotten,
Right.
you said that you don't have access to the expense reports and for tourism.
Shoot.
If you don't directly, then have to ask staff to provide it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And my other question, it's my understanding that right now, our tourism visitor information, since it's tied to the museum, is closed 6 months out of the year, is that right? Or is there an
We are
alternative?
closed November 1st through February 28th, so 4 months.
So 4 months. And then, so looking at having full-time tourism staff, does that mean that we're gonna have to figure out a way to keep the visitor center open all year round?
The contract that we have is separate. The visitor center doesn't have a formal contract, and I have been asking for that for a while. But the tourism admin services contract is a separate issue.
Go ahead, Tiffany.
Yes, thank you. I think that I would like some clarity because I'm confused. I feel like there's a lot of muddling going on and I'm not understanding the visitor center, museum, tourism, all of that dynamic. So I don't know if we can get some clarity on that because we contract with the Historical Society, correct? Do we, or just, I don't understand how any of this works. It's just all very confusing. And I hear all these different entities being thrown out and I'm not exactly, tonight was the first time I heard that this is not a tourism, because all this time I thought that this was a tourism report.
Committee report.
Yeah,
Committee
tourism
report.
committee
It's not.
report, yeah. So, but it's not, so I guess I would like a little bit of clarity on all of these different dynamics that are going on within this bigger, whatever it is.
Do you want that in a meeting or would you like to get a cup of coffee and talk through it?
Does anybody else understand?
I've had to meet and dig and find out, because we have the visitor center on a handshake that we give money for. And then we have tourism support. So that is on a contract, so, Courtney.
I would like a little bit more of an official delineation because I don't feel like I can make informed decisions for the future of tourism, for the future of contracts, for the future of any of it without having a better understanding of it.
Yeah, I'd advocate for, you give a 5-minute overview of kind of how these organizations kind of.
Oh, yeah, like the history organizationally of the museum and why it's so
And the visitor
invested.
center.
Thanks for giving some time to prepare, obviously.
The new pony task. My favorite name of any committee ever.
Not necessarily tonight, but
Right.
and I understand this moving forward on all of this.
I think it'd be beneficial, and I would advocate for having us all get that information, because I think that, you know, if you and Tiffany sit down, then, you know, the rest of us don't get it, so.
Right.
Yeah.
I agree.
All right, any other questions for Janice, comments?
I guess the only other question I had was you're advocating or making a point earlier for really strongly arguing for the benefit of, you know, this being a full-time position, and that there's a ROI for that. You know, what is that based off of, you know, I guess, how do you think that we would be able to afford, you know, a $70,000 position in-house
Plus benefits.
plus benefits? I have a lot of respect for you, and I know you've thought this through, so I'm just wondering, how can we make a case that we'd be able to bring in more than 70? You're saying that that person will be able to generate more than $70,000 in additional TLT funds, or?
I mean, if they were to make half of the increases that they had at Troutdale in that amount of time, then yes, they would absolutely make that. I think I did the math on that yesterday, it came out to around 83 if you were to make half of the increase.
Do we have the capacity and occupancy to be able to? You know, it seems like our hotels are booked.
I think that there's a lot of room for growth in your off seasons. I don't think the hotels are booked midweek. The only time that you see those like, sorry, no vacancy signs up, which is one of the indicators that we have, is on the weekends in the summer, so there's room for more there.
So I'm just looking at this, and it's a little fuzzy,
Yeah, can hardly-
but occupancy looked like it was 6 to 6.7%, so it's.
Yeah, and that's, you have to, it's like, I don't have this report just for Cascade Locks either, so like you have to understand that that's got like, you know, the Best Western and Hood River included in it, which has a different level of occupancy or consistency than most of our hotels do.
Do you think we're below that then?
I do.
Well, I mean, if you were to put a number on it, do you think we're at 50%?
So this is saying for Hood River County, year to date, the occupancy rate was 72.2%. I would say for Cascade Locks, you're probably looking at closer to 60, but that is a wild guess because I do not have that data, so.
And so we're, you know, just under 300,000 for our annual TLT receipts, and we're at 60%. We increase that, it'd have to be a 20% increase in occupancy to pay for the $70,000 salary. Is that accurate?
I mean, you could do that using the money that you already have, though. You've got, what, almost $300,000 in total receipts, so roughly $100,000 of that is designated for tourism. If you were to create a position using those funds, then you would have somebody doing a lot of the work that is costing you money.
So we can use the TLT funds to
You
actually.
can use the TLT funds to fund a position, yeah.
And then what else are we using those TLT funds for right now? Because I know that, are we using them for some of the bathroom upkeep and maintenance?
They budgeted to put that in this year's budget. I have not seen how those allocations have played out.
None of that should have been spent yet.
Thanks.
Yeah. I think Councilor Happy's point, to hire somebody for the salary we're assuming it would need, we'd have to find additional funding, whether it's from the general fund, from the port, or them. The TLT currently brought in the 30% split is not enough to cover a full-time position. And I'll agree with Janice that there is enough work for a full-time person to do tourism, to do economic development, to work on bringing things in during that off-season. As she mentioned, we had a very brief conversation about a group that wants to put an ice rink somewhere in the gorge. I mean, why not Cascade Locks? I mean, having committed staff doing that in partnership with the port. They focus on their portion, we focus on our portion, we all synergy, work together, all that fun stuff. But I do think there is enough work for a full-time person between tourism and economic development.
Is there a way to do that? So you're saying there'd be some cost sharing for that specific person?
Yes, because we currently, the TLT, we bring in designated for tourism, not enough to pay for the person. Also, TLT funds can only be spent on tourism, so their salary, if it was 100% tourism money, they couldn't do economic development. So a portion of their salary has to come from someone else to justify them doing economic. The way I see it though, is our economy is tourism for better or worse. So having them work on the downtown plan, improving streetscapes, improving wayfinding signage, working with businesses to recruit them, bring in an ice cream, whatever it is, to me is tourism. The state may view it differently. So. If that makes sense.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you so much, Janice. Appreciate it. All right, moving on, community liaison report.
Unfortunately, Jake is sick today. He was out, was gonna try and power through and come in, just couldn't make it. So I can read it. I'm sure you've read it all. We can table this for him to do it in person on the 10th or in December. The 10th is getting pretty full already. Up with council how they want to.
You guys would like to table it and have him come? Yeah, let's table it.
Okay, Mayor, we can look at the 10th agenda.
Yeah.
I don't wanna overdo the 10th.
No, I don't.
It's starting out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Would he have to report? Or could he just be present and we could ask and find out more information that, you know, have a chance to have some one-on-one.
Yeah, that's, yeah,
time with them.
and that's really what it would be those, that one-on-one ask questions about this, how things are going,
Yeah.
not so much the report itself.
Alright, okay, so, but at some time, are we to get the report, or should you just read it, get it done with, and then you can talk about it? I mean,
But up to you all, I mean, this same report plus whatever else has happened can be presented.
Yeah, I say.
I support tabling it.
I do too, because we got 20 minutes and we have a ways to go, yeah.
Table it.
So we're gonna table it and we'll bring it back with him on. We'll see what.
Sometime in the future. Right?
Yeah, cause 11:10 meeting's looking full.
Yeah.
Will you let him know? Thank you so much for that detailed report.
Yes,
Thank
yeah,
you.
no, he has been fantastic. Hit the ground running.
Glad to hear it.
All right, audit update.
All right, audit selection requests have been submitted and the report is still slated for completion by the end of November. The PBC list for FY 23-24 has been received by the city and currently being worked on. On Friday, 10/24, Shantae wrote this, Jordan and I met with the auditors to brainstorm ways to hasten the auditing process. They suggested working with Sarah Johnson, who will help the Hood River County with their backlog of audits. In this scenario, Sarah and Shantae would work extensively together, hopefully to shorten the timeline, schedule updates. So we have reached out to Sarah to talk to her to see what that would look like. But I think getting the read of council, getting audits completed is one, and then everything else is 7B. Like, this is the main priority for council. I don't know what that cost would be, but putting additional resources, mostly funds, towards this to get it caught up. This would have a couple benefits. A, obviously getting the audits done, and B, it would free up staff to do other things besides audit work. So once we have more details, it'll be presented to council. This is where we're at. And again, no major changes in the current timeline.
So I've got a quick question on that if I could, Mayor.
Yes.
So it's not clear to me, I had requested the last meeting that we could see if we get the auditors in before their presentation, which it looks like it'll be December. What is the status of that?
They're coming in November 10th.
Yep.
At
Okay.
next meeting.
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Yes. All right. City Administrator Bennett report.
All right, so you probably noticed this week's report is quite lengthy, and I can't remember if I put it in my email to council or not. As part of the work plan development, and how I communicate with council. Council seemed open to, instead of a weekly one, bi-weekly one. The thought process was, I already have this report going out to council, there's no point in sending multiple reports. Put it all together in this one city administrator report as a read-only report, and then have you all digest it and come back to questions. And then any verbal report would be things that happen between Wednesday when this goes out and Monday night. So I can read all this if council would like, but that was the theory behind this, to try and give you all as much information as possible without overwhelming you with multiple reports. That's the thought process. One item that is coming up, it's not on this report, is the McKed Annual Symposium, is November 7th in whatever, the Dallas. One of the two, it's always one of those two. So I'm going to that next Friday. So again, if council wants me to read this, I'm more than happy to, or if you have any questions.
Tiffany,
I suggest that you don't read it, but make it a separate downloadable item for citizens to be able to read, because I mean, nobody wants to download that to get to this. And I don't even know that this wasn't even included in our packet, it was. a
No,
separate thing.
I didn't get it done in time until Friday morning, so yeah,
Right.
that one's on me.
So can it be something that the citizens can download and read it themselves? Separate from the council packet?
I mean, they can, I mean. In the entire packet, all of this, they can go into a PDF and select what pages they want to print or change into their own PDF. I mean, there's ways.
But this wasn't in
This
this.
wasn't in the packet.
Correct, yes.
So can it be?
Yes, we can upload it to the website, yes. Yeah,
do you have any other questions on the?
You do? I do have a couple, remember my questions, won't you? Just on the, it says that you're currently the vice president of the.
OMEU.
OMEU, and you'll be the president in January?
correct.
Well, congratulations.
Yeah.
I guess, or it's either,
It's
I
a
tell people it's either you're low man on the totem pole and you got the most energy, or it's really something you're really blessed.
It's the revolving door, whose turn is it? I'm the new guy who hasn't done it. So, yeah,
So, and is it a year-long
it's a year long.
position? Does it require a lot of time?
No, Jennifer Jolly, the director, does 99.9% of the work.
Okay.
Yeah, it's very minimal effort on this position's part.
Yeah, and that was, yeah, other than all the errors, that's.
Grammar's, I think I catch them, but.
Any other for that one? Any
All-
other questions or comments? No. All right, so moving on to mayor and city council comments. How about you, Bernard?
I've got nothing. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay.
I enjoyed the discussion this evening, the debate, I feel like, thank you for, putting consensus on the agenda so we could get clear on that, and I think it was, highlighted the way that we all read things a little bit different, and, so I think it's good to get some clarity on that subject, so I'm glad we can do that. And, appreciate everybody being here for the presentations this evening, and, I learned a lot, about wastewater treatment and also electrical and stuff, so. Yeah.
All right, thank you, Mary Ann. All right, thank you, Mary Ann. Eric,
Echo Pete.
okay. Tiffany,
I just have one question. Is it permissible for people to vote by emoji when they attend meetings by Zoom? Is that, I had a complaint that somebody had done that or was doing
for
that.
this meeting, for
Not for this-
council,
not
No,
for
not
council,
for this
for
meeting.
for committee meetings.
do you know?
That's why I haven't
I
had,
am emoji.
yeah, voting by emoji, no,
Thumbs
yes,
up.
no, yes, no, just voting with an emoji. Is that?
I mean, as long as it's recorded in the minutes, I don't know the technicals, but. I'm assuming this is tourism.
Is it tourism or planning?
I think it was tourism, somebody made a complaint about tourism. And I just wonder, I mean, they should have to do a verbal? I mean, should that be a requirement of our vote, voting by Zoom? I mean, to me, it could be anybody pushing the button on the other side. It should be a verbal or something. I don't know. I mean, it's just something to consider. And after learning that tonight, that this was a report not by tourism, I think we need to ask tourism to, I mean, I know they're all new right now, so I don't expect it right away, but I think that, within the next 2 or 3 months, we should be start getting reports from tourism itself. Because all this time, I thought that these were tourism committee reports, excuse me, let me state that clearly. And now, they aren't, so they need to get back on the itinerary of giving us information about what's going on in the committees. And then Special Olympics, we're almost done. Tomorrow's the last practice, and November 4th will be the competition. If anybody wishes to come, I'll try to get a poster posted on the Facebook pages, but it's 4 to 5:30 at Hood River Bowling Alley. And these kids have been working really hard and we went up to, we have 33 participants this year. So that's an 18% increase over last year. So it's a lot of fun. You can't get rewarded any more than working with these guys. They're a lot of fun.
All right, Eric, did you have some?
I was just curious, how do you vote if you're nonverbal?
Yeah.
By physically being present or being like, cause the way I heard it, and I'm sorry to interrupt, the way I heard it was like either you don't have the screen and you can't nod, like your camera's off, or you don't have a microphone and you can't verbally affirm. I feel like you can do a thumbs up maybe if you can actually see that the person voting is the person, being represented in the meeting.
And now to you, Courtney, for your comments.
I am very grateful for our community liaison, ordinance officer, sorry.
Community liaison.
Community liaison, on their report, very happy to see that, a lot of really good discussion today, I really appreciated it, and I look forward to working.
Make a motion to, oh, sorry. Sorry.
I just wanna, a few things I wanted to mention to council, like if you're submitting questions into city administrator for questions before the meeting. When we're worried and time is pressing, it'd be nice that we didn't repeat all of them, or we didn't I don't wanna tell you guys not talk so much, but that's kind of like, we have a clock that we're trying to watch and, get everybody a chance to ask their questions or comments or whatever, so. I wanted to bring that up. I attended a couple meetings with city administrator, our weekly meetings, have been still going on. And we're still on the board of the museum, so I attended the museum meeting on 10/17. Also, if you could put it on Facebook for the yard debris this Thursday, that would be great. And then on Monday, November 3rd, from noon to 2 p.m. The port is hosting to become a disaster volunteer. So at the pavilion, and Red Cross will be there to train people, because we need 10 people out of our community that can open up the warming shelter or whatever shelter we need if Red Cross can't get to us or until they get to us. So, November 3rd, from noon to 2 p.m. at the pavilion. And then, I spoke, I had a gentleman, Alan Fox, reach out to me. He was the guy that, he does a lot of electrical stuff for us and also lives in our town. And he reached out to me because he wanted to, make sure that we're informed of some very important things that are going on with our electrical. And it had so much information, and it was good information, that I would like to bring him in to talk with council and talk to you guys the way he talked to me, so you guys would understand the same things that he told me. Cause we have some concerns of tree trimming that need to be done and other things like that, but he does a much better job of doing that than I would ever be able to do. And then all the things that we didn't get told, like all the things this gentleman does for our community for free. Like our Christmas lights that get hung along the main waterfall, he does that at no charge. You know, so that he does a lot of stuff for our community, so if you guys are okay with it, I would like to add it to the agenda and have him come in and talk, and it's not about having him come in and talk about getting a job with the city. It's about having him come in and inform us of what our electrical system looks like. So, I think it would be a good conversation to be had, so.
I'm against that, Mayor. You're having a non-employee come give the council an update on our department. I'm completely against that.
Okay, well, he had asked you if he could come and present to council and you told him no.
Because he's not an employee.
Okay.
Um,
Eric,
I was ridiculed for even suggesting that people come and speak out on an issue that I felt very strongly, either in favor or opposed. And this is the same thing that the gentleman is trying to come and speak negatively about our electrical department.
no,
I,
it's different. I'm not going on Facebook and telling people to come to council. And I have not even asked him to come to council. I am coming to you guys first to say, this gentleman came to me and I think you guys should hear what I heard. That's all I'm saying.
if he wants to come and
You
present
know?
as public comment, that's.
It's okay, I think council is really missing the boat on not hearing what the gentleman has to say, whether he's. You know, I just wanted to be able to share with you guys, so. You know, it's really good information and there's no way that I can share with all of you guys unless it's in a council meeting, so. And I'll take a motion to adjourn if you guys are ready.
Stand up.
Oh, I was just saying, I feel like it kind of opens up a slippery slope where,
Mhm.
you know, potentially if someone starts making I'm not saying he would.
No.
I'm just saying anybody that comes in, if they start making disparaging comments about, city employees, that's outside the purview.
No.
You know what I mean? That.
No, it wasn't nothing to do with city employees. He's not coming here to talk about city. He's coming here just to talk to us about our electrical system. Not about any employees, not about anything else. What risk we have out there. And you know, we have some risk out there. And I don't understand why you wouldn't want him to even come to us. I
Because he's
mean,
not an employee.
right, go ahead.
Is he coming as a citizen or is he coming as an employee of Yates? Cause isn't he?
He would be coming as a citizen of Cascade Locks. So. But I'm okay. I just wanted to throw it out there because it's really good information, but
I would be more than honored to go grab a cup of coffee and listen.
you guys can reach out to him and do that. I can't coordinate that because then it turns into something else that I don't want to be a part of. So, all right, I'll take a motion to adjourn. So move.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I know, I am.
Oh.